My entitled friend ruined our trip that she planned by somehow making me the bad guy after I requested that she pay me back all the money I loaned to her, because quite literally I paid for the entirety of this trip, even though we agreed beforehand that this would be split 50-50. And now she's trying to make me look bad in front of all of my friends, and at this point I don't know if I'm the one at fault, because this entire scenario has seriously gotten out of hand. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened a couple of weeks ago, and I'm still annoyed because I genuinely tried to be a good friend. My friend, let's call her Sarah for the sake of the story, planned with me a short weekend trip out of town. Nothing crazy, just a break from work, some good food, and some sightseeing. She was super excited about it and even picked the Airbnb, the restaurants, and the activities. And I figured we'd split everything like normal adults, right? Well, from the moment we arrived, red flags were absolutely everywhere. She just kept conveniently forgetting her wallet every time we had to pay for something. We're talking from parking to getting coffee to grabbing lunch or getting an Uber or even just checking in with the Airbnb. Literally, she had an excuse for everything that was going on, constantly saying that she would pay me back later. I didn't want to make the trip awkward, so I covered what I could, and I assumed that she would settle up afterwards. And she kept saying, "Oh, don't worry, I've got you when we get home." Well, eventually we get home, and suddenly she didn't remember agreeing to split everything 50-50. She said I was apparently ruining the vibe by bringing up something as small as money. But mind you, the trip cost me over $420. This is not pocket change for me. She then started guilt-tripping me, saying that I made her feel cheap and poor for even asking. Now, here's the thing. I am not wealthy. I budget carefully, and I've been trying to rebuild my credit this year, and I plan everything to the dollar because I have to. And covering 2 people on a trip was not part of the plan. What really blew my mind was when she told our mutual friends that I had ambushed her for money. And it's like, girl, you planned half the trip. You knew the cost. You just didn't want to pay for it. At this point, I've accepted the loss, but I'm honestly wondering if I'm crazy for thinking it's normal to expect someone to pay their half. I didn't yell, I didn't fight, I didn't make it awkward on the trip. I literally waited until we got home. Everyone I've talked to said that she's in the wrong, but part of me still feels weird for bringing it up. So was I actually being unreasonable here? Because right now I really just don't know what to do. Oh man, no, you're not being unreasonable. Your friend is out of her mind. So let me get this straight. She literally planned this trip and said, "Oh, I can't wait for us to do all these things." And then when it came time to actually paying for it, she's like, "Oh, I forgot everything." It's like, dude, I can understand that for lunch or for coffee, but for all like the most expensive things, are you kidding me right now? You're really trying to tell me you don't have any money with you at all? Like, what is going on? What do you mean you don't remember splitting everything 50-50? And this is not about you ambushing her for money or like ruining the vibe. Like, those are all complete cop-outs. The truth of the matter is that she literally scammed you for money. She planned this entire trip out and then intentionally decided, "Oh, I'm not going to pay for anything. And if you ask for money, well, congratulations, you're the one at fault." But it's like, dude, what are we talking about? This is crazy talk. The level of entitlement going on right now is absolutely bonkers. How on earth can she be the one to act offended when you're the one that paid for everything that weekend? So no, you are not at fault here. And if I was in your shoes, I would absolutely not be letting this go. I would remind her over and over again, "Hey, you owe me some money. And if you think I'm going to let this go, you're crazy." Because the way she's acting and the fact that she's trying to like ruin your reputation, in my opinion, would be like the last straw where I would be like, "Oh, the gloves are off after this," because she owes you that money and you are absolutely not the bad guy here. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Today, I need to confess that I stole my own birthday cake from the work fridge, which resulted in one of the weirdest wild goose chases I've ever seen in my office, as literally everybody was convinced that we were robbed. And at this point, I'm not sure what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so this is kind of dumb, but it has been eating at me for like a couple of days now. My office has this shared kitchen with one sad fridge that smells like old pickles and wet cardboard, and everybody just dumps their stuff in there and pretends it belongs to no one. For my birthday, I bought myself this tiny chocolate cake from a bakery near the bus stop, and it was stupid expensive for how small it was, but I really wanted something nice after a rough month. I put my name on it with a marker, but the ink smeared, and now it looks like a name that nobody knows. Anyways, I planned to eat it after my shift, but at around lunch, I got this wave of panic that someone was gonna take it. People literally steal yogurts weekly, so my cake felt completely doomed. I opened the fridge and I saw 3 coworkers poking around inside, and at this point, my brain just kind of flipped into some weird survival mode. I then grabbed the cake fast, I shoved it under my hoodie, and I walked out like I was smuggling a warm hamster, but this proved to be a massive mistake. Later, someone noticed the empty spot and started this whole drama that maybe an outsider got in. Security was checking cameras, but the angle's too low, so all you see is my torso wobbling like I'm hiding a secret balloon. People keep talking about how creepy it is hilarious that someone would break in just to take a tiny cake. But I just nodded along while eating that same cake at home at midnight with a spoon from my sink. I know I should probably confess, but the story got too big, and now I feel like I accidentally created a micro-urban legend in my office. I still have the bakery box in my trash, and every time I see it, I feel like it's staring at me. I do feel guilty, but also the cake was really good, and I genuinely doubt I could have resisted any longer. Oh man, I hate when stuff like that happens. You know the thing where it's like, oh man, I'm trying to get this thing done and I don't want anybody to notice, but then the entire office notices and even security gets involved. Like, holy crap, how annoying. What was supposed to be like a subtle thing you were taking care of quickly became like a bigger deal than anybody wanted this to be. And that, in my opinion, is hilarious, and that's kind of the reason why I love this story. An entitled pet owner literally puts my dog and his dog at risk after he brings his small dog into the big dog portion of the dog park. Because what happens next is probably one of the most frustrating experiences of my entire life. And honestly, I'm still trying to get over it. Here's what happened. Okay, for starters, I have a border collie named Venus, and Venus is a service dog and has pretty much saved my life. Like, I love her more than I can possibly say. But to begin this story, let me tell you a thing a lot of people don't know about service dogs. They play. It seems silly, but a lot of people seem to think service dogs are perfect robots who are only there to serve and have no other dog instincts. But that is not true, or at least it shouldn't be. A service dog needs to play, and also to know when they're on duty and when they're just relaxing. Not to mention knowing how to recognize when their relaxing time needs to be interrupted. Venus loves to play. When she's off duty, she loves to be surrounded by people and play with everyone. She also has dog friends, and this is an important point because her playing buddies are huge. 2 of them are golden retrievers and the other's a Labrador. And since she's the smaller of the group, she is used to play rough. And every time a smaller dog approaches her, I make sure to be watching closely so that she doesn't hurt the smaller dog while playing. So today, it was my boyfriend's birthday, and we decided to go to the park with some friends of his to have a picnic. And since Venus was invited, like literally he gave her a card, we decided to go to a dog area where there are some big spaces with some agility equipments that's all surrounded by fences so that the dogs can be without a collar. Now there are 4 of those spaces in the park side by side, and they are pretty much all the same, except there are some spaces with some agility gear that's smaller, just so smaller dogs can do the tricks. Like, it really is a lovely place. So we get into one of the dog spaces and start our picnic. Since Venus knew everyone there and I was comfortable, I decided to use her normal collar instead of the cape that she uses when she's on duty. That way she would know that she is there to play. We go there, play with her, we let her try the agility things, and at one point I was sitting on the farthest end of the park just chatting while another group was playing fetch with Venus, when out of nowhere I freeze completely when I start hearing a dog whining. I look to the other side of the camp to see Venus just rolling and stepping at the smallest dachshund pup I've ever seen in my life. My first instinct was to start running and yell, "What kind of idiot brought a puppy here?" And immediately I started yelling for Venus to stop. It took a few seconds for her to stop rolling the pup around, just in time for when I arrived there, put her back on the leash, and started chewing her out. Then I look at the puppy and it's stumbling its way towards a middle-aged bald man who was looking at it and laughing, for God's sakes. I look at him extremely confused. He looks back and says, "That's fine, they were just playing," seemingly oblivious to the fact that Venus was playing, but his poor little puppy was having the most stressful experience of its life. At the time, I could not believe he was serious. So I glanced at the other spaces and I said to him, "Sir, there are other empty spaces there." The moron then looks at me and says, "And what are you suggesting?" before grabbing his puppy and taking him to walk around the camp. I was so confused for a moment, I just let him go, and I turned to the people who were there and I asked if they told him to join us or something like that, for which they responded the guy just entered our spot without even glancing at us and set his puppy down to play with Venus while he just kept scrolling on his cell phone. And just as a matter of point, this was not us thinking that we own the place. People share those spots very frequently, but there is literally a sign warning owners that if there is another dog in the area, you should speak first to the owners and ask if it's okay to let your dogs play with them. It is both basic decency and common sense in order to avoid accidents. And that dude just ignored both signs and the empty lots for who knows what reason, and then just started laughing when his puppy got in danger. Now at this point, I was not only livid but highly stressed out. In my city, a dog that takes out another person's dog is euthanized, and that moron not only put his poor puppy in danger, but he also put Venus in danger as well. And everything I could think of as I saw that scene is that that little innocent puppy would pass away, and then I would lose the most precious friend that I have in life. I was so mad that when the guy approached us yet again to urge his puppy to play with Venus, who by now had already understood that playtime was over and was just sitting quietly and ignoring the puppy, I instead just gave a step and said that what he just did was extremely irresponsible, both for his dog and with mine. And of course, an idiot who's stupid enough to throw his puppy to a big unknown dog would throw the most stupid temper tantrum over it as well. well. He said that me and my generation are exactly why we can't have a peaceful life, and all he was trying to do was have a nice day, but apparently I ruined it. Then he said that I was crazy and that he knew dogs are pure, and the only way a dog could be evil is if the owner was evil like me. Then he said, "Oh, I've done this before several times, and never has a dog attacked my puppy." And for that, I answered that all he had to do was to pick a day to gamble with the wrong dog, and his puppy would quickly become dog food. And since he was an absolute moron, I knew that he would be the first one to speak up and say that he wants that dog euthanized for hurting his dog. I did not care about his peace of mind, or if I ruined his day, if he literally came here to put his dog in danger and make a problem. At this point, he just walks towards me with a finger raised, saying that I was evil, and if I knew the things he wanted to do to me, I would get out of his face, which I didn't. And I'm not saying that as if I'm prudent, because he easily could have been really dangerous with something on him, but this guy put dogs in danger, and the person he was talking to was a black belt with 20 friends already forming a circle and answering his comments with promises of what would happen to him if he raised a hand. At the end, the dude just went away yelling curses and slurs and stomping like a toddler with his poor puppy in his hands. We spent a couple more hours there, but then we decided to leave earlier than planned just to make sure that this guy didn't come back and try and hurt us or something like that. As we left, we even spoke with a nice couple with another border collie who asked if their dog could play with Venus, and I was heartbroken that we had to say no because we were already in the process of leaving. So that's what happened. I know that maybe I should have not engaged, but what is done is done. I'm really sad for my boyfriend and the other people since it ruined the nice picnic mood, and it's also sad that I had to reprimand Venus for something that is not her fault in her playing day. I also feel bad for that puppy. It was so young, and I'm not even sure if it was at the age of getting like necessary vaccines. It's really sad that it will have to spend its life with such an irresponsible trash can of a person who also just happens to be its owner. Oh man, that had to have been a really frustrating situation. I've personally never brought a dog to a dog park for this specific reason, because there are so many irresponsible pet owners out there, it is not even funny. And it doesn't help that you literally did everything right. You trusted your dog is obviously trained, and you went to a part of the park where it's like, yeah, big dogs can play here. So I don't know what this guy was thinking bringing that small puppy to the big dog section and being like, oh yeah, this is fine. Like, that guy's 100% in the wrong, and if he had just gone to the correct portion of the park, all of this could have been avoided. My entitled office manager at the doctor's office I worked at decided to micromanage me and pretty much everybody else in my department. So we decided to maliciously comply to his stupid new rules, resulting in the entire doctor's office falling apart at the seams, and this idiot coming to terms with the fact that he was completely wrong. Here's what happened. So I used to work as a front desk coordinator at a mid-sized medical office. My job was simple enough: greet patients, verify insurance, hand off charts, and keep the schedule running smoothly. But our new office manager, who was a man determined to leave a mark whether we wanted one or not, decided that the front desk needed more discipline. He called it efficiency, but we called it micromanagement in its purest form. His biggest rule was that we were no longer allowed to leave any personal notes or reminders anywhere near the check-in area. Not on sticky notes, not on the desk, not even on our monitors. Everything had to be documented in the digital system and nowhere else. The problem was that the system was slow, it was glitchy, and did not allow notes that applied to the front desk as a whole. Little things like, oh, the patient prefers to use their middle name, or the patient will need extra time because English is their second language. Stuff like that simply could not be logged into the system without cluttering their medical file, something the doctors absolutely hated. For years, we had solved this with a small corkboard behind the desk. Nothing sensitive, just helpful reminders so patients felt welcomed and cared for. The manager saw it once and told us to remove every single thing immediately. He said if information cannot be stored in the official system, then we do not need it at all. And while we can ask for preferences one time at check-in, we must not rely on past notes because they are unprofessional. He made us say yes even though every one of us knew this would go badly, so we complied very intentionally. The next week was scheduled to be our busiest of the quarter. Our office served a lot of elderly patients and folks who had been coming to us for decades. Many of them had small but important preferences that helped the day run smoothly. Without our corkboard, we followed the new rule to the letter. If it was not in the official system, we pretended that we had never heard it. And that's when things really started to go south. For starters, a patient who hated being called by her first name and always used her middle name got called by the wrong one repeatedly. Another patient who needed extra time to walk from the waiting room to the exam room got scheduled normally and had to be moved twice, throwing the entire schedule off. The doctor, who relied on us to warn him that one of his patients had severe hearing loss, walked into the exam room speaking at a normal volume, and the poor man could not hear a thing. So a 15-minute appointment turned into nearly 40. Families who usually left happy were confused and frustrated by the lack of of personal care. By Thursday, the entire place looked like a traffic jam with medical degrees. Patients complained, doctors complained, even the billing department complained because so many appointments had run late that they had to reschedule consultations. Our manager then marched out front with a tight jaw and asked what on earth was happening, but I told him calmly that we were simply following his directive. If something could not be stored in the official system, then we were not allowed to keep use of it. So we had not used it. Every single delay, every frustrated patient, every rescheduled appointment was the natural result of the efficiency he had wanted so badly, and you could almost see the moment he realized he had caused his own mess. The following Monday, he called a staff meeting and announced that a new official board would be installed behind the desk for front-facing operational notes. He said it would be strictly for workflow optimization. And trust me, we all knew exactly what that meant. It meant that he wanted things back to the way they were, but without admitting that he had been wrong. Well, we didn't care. We were literally just thrilled that we had the board back. But the best part about all of this was the ripple effect. After that week, he stopped micromanaging everything that we did. He didn't apologize, not once, but he also never again gave an order without asking how it would affect the front desk. The doctors noticed the smoother workflow, patients were happy again, and we kept our system exactly as it had been before his grand experiment. And this is all because we followed his instructions perfectly, which ended exactly as we expected. Okay, as someone who's worked at a doctor's office, this is hysterical to me because holy crap, without that note board behind the desk, like seriously, you're not gonna get anything done. All the useful notes are just out the window and it's like, dude, I am absolutely lost dealing with these patients. And any sense of like personal care, just like the original poster stated, all of that is completely out the window. And by the way, the only reason you have that is because patients are nightmare fuel. And this even extends to like retail dealing with customers. If there's something people can complain about, trust me, they will absolutely find it. And it can become so obnoxious so quickly. Like all that information is just survival tactics. Sure, you can call it like good customer service, but it's also a way of preventing you from having a headache on like a Friday evening when you're literally just trying to get out on time and it's like, dude, are you kidding me right now? I don't have any of my notes to reference. Great. Now I get to deal with an angry 90-year-old who's like, wow, you called me by the wrong name. But it's like, dude, how am I supposed to remember I need to use your middle name? Like, are you kidding me right now? So yeah, that manager got exactly what he deserved. His rules were incredibly stupid, and honestly, I don't blame you for maliciously complying, because if I was in your shoes, I would have happily watched it all burn down and just maliciously complied and let everything fall apart. Am I the jerk for leaving the movies after basically my friends lied to me? Because right now I'm still pissed off and I seriously just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. So I was enjoying a nice night out with my friends, or so I thought. It started out with 5 of us going to this event in our town. While we were there, one of my friend's boyfriend joins us halfway through the event. We were all having a good time, and we had later plans to go and watch this new movie in the theater. We then left the event and decided to go get some dinner at a restaurant. While we were there, I noticed that my friend's boyfriend was texting someone on his phone and smiling a lot. And my friend then looked at his phone and got a bit visibly upset. And remember this because this will be very important later on. Dinner ended and we all made our way to the movies where we all had purchased our tickets. We all picked our seats and made it into the theater. And I went to go sit in the seat that I had paid for when one of my friends says, "Oh, this seat is for someone else." I then asked him, "Okay, well, who's it for?" But I got no reply from anybody when I asked this question. And it's right about here that I started to piece it all together. I then asked them if this seat was for our friend, who I will call Sally for the sake of the story. And just for a bit of context, Sally is somebody that I was really good friends with up until we got into a relationship that ended up on really sketchy terms. However, we decided to remain friends. Nothing bad happened, but in the end, it just was not working out. However, a week prior to this whole movie fiasco, she had said hanging out with me would be too much, and everybody knew this. Well, flash forward to now where my friends respond by saying, "Well, yeah, this is for Sally." I then asked them why they would invite her, and again, I got no response. I then turned to my roommate and I asked the same question, and she said that she didn't know until like 5 minutes ago that Sally would even be there in the first place, and that she had no part of it. But guess what? It turns out my friend's boyfriend had invited Sally, but left out the part that I was also there. So yeah, that's exactly who he was texting during dinner, by the way. Nobody was even looking me in the eyes, but nonetheless, they were answering my questions. I then sat down and I thought for a second. I knew that Sally probably didn't know I was going to be there, and that this would be an awkward interaction for the both of us, and that neither of us would be able to enjoy the movie. I was also really pissed off that my friends would pull one over on me like this. I thought that what they did was a bit selfish and inconsiderate to both Sally and my feelings. I was very frustrated, and it was here that I got up and I just left. My friends asked me where I was going, and I just said I was going to the bathroom. So I went to the bathroom and I called my best friend, who agreed that what they did was messed up, and they actually came and picked me up from the theater. Now, it's important to know that nobody had texted or called asking where I went and or if I was okay. And in the end, I guess they got to hang out with a friend that they actually wanted to. I also learned that afterwards, they were all saying that I was being dramatic and making a big deal of nothing. But they not only blindsided me, but Sally as well. I'm not expecting anyone to apologize, but also no one's apologized. So I don't know, the whole thing just seems really super fake and just disrespectful. And at this point, I really just don't know what to do. Okay, first of all, the fact that nobody's looking you in the eyes after they basically betrayed you, in my opinion, says everything you need to know about these supposed friends. Like, these are not friends in the slightest, these people really suck, and in my opinion, I don't blame you for walking out, so no, you're definitely not the jerk here. A crazy entitled Karen follows me around town for over an hour, claiming that I tried to have my dog bite her and that she was going to have me arrested for my dog going to the bathroom on her property. And I've honestly never met anybody this insane in my life. Here's what happened. So last night at around 10 o'clock p.m., I was taking my dog for a walk through the neighborhood. We don't have a yard, so we have to walk her 3 times a day so she can do her business. I always pick up after her, and people usually give a friendly wave when they see us. That is, until tonight. My dog starts doing her duty at the edge of someone's yard while I stand on the street holding the leash. I'm starting to pull out my doggy bag when this lady comes running up and starts yelling at me. She says to me, "Do not let your dog poop right here." Now, I was surprised and weirded out, but I told her, "Don't worry, I'm gonna pick it up." Well, she keeps yelling as she gets closer. "No, don't let your dog poop on my property. My window is open and I don't want to smell it. Control your dog and make your dog stop right now." Now, my dog was mid-business meeting, if you know what I mean. So I explained that dogs don't work that way. I told her that I can't stop her from pooping, but I will pick it up when she's done. Now, at this point, it's pretty clear the lady's not listening to me and just keeps getting closer to us, yelling about dog poop or something like that. Well, my dog starts growling at her. So I warn her by saying, "Please don't get close to my dog. She does bite." Then the lady says to me, "Okay, I'm calling the cops. They're going to arrest you." I say to her, "That's fine," and I ask her to please go in her house and call the cops. She tries to enter her house, but it seems whoever she lives with has locked her out of the house, and it makes me think, man, I wonder why. She then starts running towards me, and I again warn her that my dog will bite. My dog is growling and barking now because dogs don't like screaming Karens in their face. This entitled Karen starts screaming at me to pick up the poop and that she's calling the police to have me arrested. I said to her, "Ma'am, I'll deal with that later. Right now, though, your hostile behavior is creating an unsafe situation for me and my dog. So I think we're gonna leave now." She then starts screaming profanities, calling me names and chasing after me. So I just continue to walk away, thinking that it will end there. But nope, she continues to follow me down the street. I hear her yelling into her phone at the police to come and arrest me. I hear her telling them that I apparently was gonna have my dog bite her. But I literally just kept walking, knowing that the cops are telling her to go home and they'll deal with it later, which is honestly wishful thinking at best. She continues to walk behind me at about a 15-foot distance. She's now yelling in another language at someone who I assume is the person who locked her out of the house, and I just hope that she'll stop following me eventually so I can go home. I don't want her to see where I live, so I take several detours, but she just keeps following me from 15 feet away. I don't have my phone, so I can't call for help, so I decide to head into the downtown area to try and find somebody who might be able to help me. This entitled Karen literally followed me almost a mile into town from 15 feet away. She just silently followed me walking my dog through neighborhoods, business districts, and across the highway into town. She had her phone out recording me, and I was getting really annoyed. I eventually made it to a busy bar with 5 young men standing outside, and unfortunately, they were all speaking in a foreign language as well. So I turn around and tell the lady to stop following me. She then starts yelling at me, "You follow me back to my house for the police to arrest you. You said you were gonna have your dog bite me. You better follow me right now because I want the police to arrest you." I told her, "Okay, sure, I'll follow you. You lead the way." And trust me, she was almost dumb enough to fall for it. But she saw me try to slip away, but then turned around and started her whole yelling thing again. Meanwhile, the young men outside the bar just kept talking amongst themselves. I continued walking through town with a lady following me, recording me on her phone. I finally ran into a woman who approached me with a very concerned look on her face. I said to her, "Listen, can you please help help me. This lady has been following me for over an hour." The nice lady said, "I know, I've been watching this go on for a minute." She then confronted the entitled Karen, telling her to leave me alone. And it was then that the nice lady looked at me and told me to go. So while this entitled Karen was busy yelling at the nice lady about how my dog pooped on her property or whatever, I just started running. I ran through a couple businesses and onto a back street and managed to lose this entitled Karen. I walked a full mile back to my house and I locked the door behind me. Now, I don't know what kind of crazy that was, but all I know is that I feel really bad for whoever was inside that house with the doors locked, because I can only imagine having to live with that entitled Karen. Okay, so first off, this entitled Karen really is crazy. Like, who in their right mind would follow someone for that long and act that insane over a dog crapping in their yard? But also, to the original poster, you really shouldn't have done that in the first place. Like, sure, her reaction was like way out of line, but you really should have taken your dog somewhere else and like not done that on their yard. I can kind of understand why she would be upset, but the way she went about handling this was like insane. She was lying to the police, saying you're trying to get your dog to bite her, and then she literally followed you for over a mile. We're talking like an hour of walking around the city. Like, that is some crazy behavior. So good for you for getting away from that Karen, and hopefully you don't go near that neighborhood ever again, because I'm sure that entitled Karen would love to run into you again and give you a piece of her mind. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My mother has gone no contact with me after I finally tell her that I'm not getting married in my home state. And now, as a result of not getting her way, she has completely cut contact with me and is now refusing to talk to me. And now I feel very hurt, and I simply don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, for starters, I got engaged 2 days ago. My mom was very happy as she loves my fiance. We have been together for 5 years, and she has always been very accepting of him and our relationship. And it's important to know that my mom has triggers that will usually set her off, especially if she feels like she's being abandoned or unwanted. And this will be important later on. Today, my older sister asked me what our wedding plans are in a group chat with her, my mom, and myself. She wanted to know if I was eloping or if we were having a traditional wedding. Ideally, my fiance and I would love to get eloped, since we both struggle with social anxiety. However, I told her that we would be happy having a small, immediate family-only wedding, mostly so I could appease my mom and his family. Well, when I said that, my mother immediately said to me, "You have to have it here though." And when she says that I have to have it here, she means my home state, which I absolutely hate and I don't want to do. This, of course, upset her, and her response was to say, "What about your grandma, your friends, and my friends?" Now, when she said my friends, that honestly got me. Why do her friends have to come along? Now, for reference, I live in another state with my fiance and his family, and I told my mom, who is very wealthy and doesn't work, that they could very easily come here. She is constantly traveling all over the world, so I figured a 1-hour plane ride would be no big deal. I even said that we could make appointments and set dates for any dress shopping or venue shopping, because my mother-in-law and sister-in-law would like to be included as well. They love me, and I have been considered a part of their family ever since we met. My mother-in-law works, and my sister-in-law works and goes to school full-time, so they're not as financially well off to be buying plane tickets. Now, this is where I might have messed up, because after I said that, she immediately responded by saying, "Oh, so I'm excluded from that too? Fine, I don't want to talk anymore." And it's like she just didn't even read any of my text messages, because obviously I want my mom with me. I love my mom, and I always have, despite the problems that we've had. My sister tried to reassure me and said it would be okay, and that she has been through this before with her too. In fact, my mom refused to talk to her after she moved across the country with her own husband. I'm honestly just so tired of the manipulation, and I almost don't even want to invite her anymore, knowing that something else will trigger her again along the way of planning. And she gets so mean about it and tries to make you feel guilty. So honestly, I guess I just need to know that I'm not crazy and that I have the freedom to make my own decisions and not worry about what my mom's reaction might be. I'm honestly so hurt, and I now don't know what to do. Yeah, your mom's acting really rational. It seems like she didn't get her way, so now she's like, "Oh, I'm just not gonna talk to you." And that's just super immature. There's no reason to be doing that. Like, it really sounds like she has every opportunity available to literally take the time and fly out to your wedding. She has the money, she has the time, and it just sounds like she's being lazy. And that's the only reason she's like, "Oh, but you're gonna have the wedding here, right?" Like, that, in my opinion, is just so uncalled for, and there's there's no reason for her to be so selfish towards you. So I definitely don't think you're the jerk here. I think that your mom is being completely irrational, and hopefully she realizes that sooner than later. Am I the jerk for not wanting to visit my wife's grandparents after they gave my lazy brother-in-law a $50,000 truck? Because right now I feel very jaded about the entire situation, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my brother-in-law is 28 years old with no job. He lives in my in-laws' basement. He is obese and survives off of welfare checks from the Canadian government. He is capable of working but just chooses not to. My wife, on the other hand, is 26 years old and moved out when she was 18. She self-funded a degree, she works in a good field and makes $80,000 annually, got married, and has never sought a handout from her parents or grandparents even though they both have the means. We spent our vacation time the last 2 years visiting her grandparents who live across the country. Recently, her grandparents moved out of their house and into their retirement living and no longer had space for both of their vehicles. Her grandfather decided to give my brother-in-law a truck with a fair value of about $50,000. His justification was to help him build confidence and give him something to care for. Meanwhile, my wife was given nothing and they did not do anything to even out the gift. We have a trip planned to visit them in a few months, but I have no interest in going to see them. I am mad at myself for letting money ruin my perception of them, but I do not appreciate how my wife was treated. I feel that they take her for granted. We always go out of our way to visit them, and all of our trips are self-funded. We have never asked anything of them, while lots of her cousins have been bailed out financially. I just have this icky feeling about the entire thing. My wife got upset when I told her I wanted to do something else with our vacation time. She got really upset, and it led to an argument. She took the stance that we have to enjoy our time with them while we have it. My wife and I are currently saving for our first house, we're paying off student loans, and we're saving for our first child. We still drive my very first car I bought 10 years ago, and the situation just really hurts, as we could really use the help, all while her brother lives a free ride and gets nothing but help all the time. So am I the jerk for not wanting to see my wife's grandparents because of this? Because right now I seriously don't know what to do. So in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk for not wanting to go, but in my opinion, I think you really should support your wife no matter what she decides to do. Like, she's the one who would really know her family above anybody else, so if she wants to go and see her family for a weekend or for like some vacation time of some kind, then I think it would be a good idea to follow her lead and just go. It might be one of those situations where it's like, oh man, I'm gritting my teeth and I'm bearing this the entire time, but if that's what you've got to do so that your wife can feel happy about visiting her grandparents, then honestly, so be it. Just don't spend any time with your brother-in-law and maybe that'll fix the problem. Because at the end of the day, this is your wife's family, and I know if I was in your shoes, I would try to be supportive. Am I the jerk for being upset at my wealthy friend, all because she wouldn't even let me borrow $5, despite the fact that I've helped her countless times when she was poor? Because right now, I am deeply hurt, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my best friend and I have been friends for nearly 7 years. When we first met, she was struggling financially and lived paycheck to paycheck. At one point, her car broke down and she had no transportation to work. So I would let her borrow my car and never asked her for any gas money or anything in return. At the time, I was financially secure and I was happy to help her out. As the years went by, my financial situation changed, and just like her, I began living paycheck to paycheck. By this time, she had started dating a guy she met online who revealed to her a few months into dating that he was a millionaire. They married shortly after, and suffice to say, she has not had to struggle since. There have been a few times I've asked to borrow money, which I've always paid back, and it's usually not much, maybe less than $25 or so each time, and she would always oblige with no problems until recently. The last couple of times I asked to borrow money, she said that she didn't have it, which I found really odd. But then I asked to borrow $5, and she said the same thing, and I just thought it was weird that she told me she didn't have $5 to spare. I know that ever since she got married, her brothers and a couple other friends have tried taking advantage of her newfound wealth by asking to borrow money that never got paid back, and having her bail them out of situations that they put themselves in, and in that they have cost her a lot of money. I started to think that maybe I had forgotten to pay her back money that I owed her at some point, so I reached out to her to ask if that was the case. When she told me that wasn't the case any longer, as in I had always paid her back, I told her I felt hurt, because it felt like if I needed her help with something, that I couldn't reach out to her for help because she couldn't even let let me borrow $5. She replied and said that just like her brothers, I needed to learn how to budget my money better and that she can't be the one to bail everyone out. She said that when she was struggling, she had to work multiple jobs and did what she had to do. But I replied and said that it was not fair for her to lump me in with her brothers, as I have never done anything to take advantage of her, and I never would have said something like that to her when I let her borrow my car, or anytime she would ask me to borrow money when she was struggling. I told her that I loved her, but that I was ending the conversation, and she replied that this is why money and friends should never mix. Since then, she has reached out and said that she didn't deserve that conversation last night, and that she really wanted me to know that, which I have not replied to, and I have no plans to do so. I am deeply hurt that she feels I was in the wrong, but I do not think that I was the jerk here. I understand that I'm not entitled to anybody's money, borrowed or not, but when she was in my shoes, I did everything I could to help her out. I could understand if I asked to borrow large amounts of money, but I literally asked for $5, and now I worry that my friendship is completely ruined. Okay, I want to start this off by saying that I don't think you're the jerk, but I do think you kind of set your friend up in a way. It really seems like any kind of help you gave her in the past is coming off as like some kind of transactional thing where you're expecting her to step in the way that you did for her. And I just don't think that's fair at all, and I think you're setting up a weird precedent by asking for money really consistently. Like, just think about her perspective for a second. She suddenly married a millionaire, and now everybody and their mother is asking her for money. And this is especially true for her brothers and a couple of other friends. She's probably feeling really taken advantage of, and you're probably one of many people asking her for money. Like, I totally understand where you're coming from because it is just $5, but like if somebody asked me over and over again for money and then made this huge stink about me not giving them $5, like I would be pretty frustrated as well. So I don't think you're totally the jerk, but I also don't think you're not at fault, because in my opinion, it really seems like a mountain was made out of a molehill. Not to mention that there's a lot of information from your friend that we just don't know. But regardless, if this really is as good of a friend as you're claiming, hopefully you guys can work this out and find some kind of compromise to be better friends again. Because what you just described does not sound like a healthy friendship in the slightest. And hopefully the both of you are able to talk this out and find some kind of middle ground with this situation. My ex-boyfriend wants to meet up for closure a month after the breakup. And after the way he broke up with me, I'm honestly feeling very hesitant. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 26-year-old female, and my ex-boyfriend and I recently broke up. For context, we were together for 2 years and we were long distance. I work full-time in my state. I run a small animal shelter and do content creation on the side, while he works very flexible hours and is mostly remote, so he's always the one visiting me. He's a 6-hour drive away, and he puts a lot of effort into visiting me every other month or so. Well, I recently just started a new job, which although was fully remote, was also really stressful. So when he visited, we couldn't spend as much time like we normally do. But there was a day when I pulled an all-nighter to finish my work in advance and spend more time with him the next day when he was scheduled to leave. Now, on the day when he was supposed to leave, he decided to extend one more day so that we could spend more time together. But here's the thing, I had a scheduled shoot the next day, and I let him know that there was a strict call time, so I could just meet him there afterwards. He insisted on bringing me, and then we can just spend the rest of the day together. So I agreed. Come the next day, and he was almost half an hour late. When he arrived, I still greeted him, gave him some love, and let him know that it was fine, but we needed to hurry since I was running really late already. Throughout the car ride, there wasn't a sense of urgency on his end, which caused us to miss 2 stoplights. And mind you, the traffic in our area is really bad, and that was one of my pet peeves. He drives really slowly, so I did react negatively, and I pointed out that I'm running late, and he could have at least told me that he would be really late, so I could have gone to the venue on my own. Anyways, he drove more quickly, and we got to the venue, but there was a bit of awkward tension between us, and we didn't really talk much then. After my shoot, we went straight to the car, and I saw that he set the GPS route back to where he was staying. So I broke the silence and told him to just drop me off somewhere so that I could eat if he was planning to go home. And after I said that, this is where things really got nasty. He's normally the sweetest and most loving person, but in that moment, he became a completely stone-cold stranger. He stopped the car a few seconds later, and with the most indifferent expression, signaled for me to get out of the car. I was in shock, and I told him that we should talk properly instead, but he refused. He said to me, "Well, you want to get out, right? Okay, then get out." I ended up telling him that I'd stay instead so that we can talk it out, and just apologized how I came off annoyed annoyed at being late. He said it was his initiative to extend his stay, as well as bring me to my event when he didn't have to. So essentially, he was calling me ungrateful. I acknowledged everything and apologized for how I reacted. And I also made it clear that it had nothing to do with that. I was just frustrated with being late, but I made sure to assure him that it was fine at the start. And I even treated him to his favorite food and offered to buy him a gift at the mall the night before, just as a thank you for staying one more day. Well, he just constantly cut me off, telling me to stop talking and that he's made up his mind that he wanted nothing to do with me anymore. He wasn't aggressive or anything like that, but he was saying all of these with the most stone-cold expression. I even tried touching his arm and he just wiped it off, acting disgusted by my touch. It was the most degrading feeling, and I just ended up being quiet the entire time we were on the way home. He ended up stopping by at a drive-thru so I could get some food, and I thought that was him kind of feeling guilty for how he talked to me, so I got him a snack as well, but he just refused them without even looking at me and proceeded to drop me off without saying a word and just drove off. A few hours later, he texted to apologize for how abruptly and rudely he ended things, but according to him, he said exactly what he said and he meant it. He was already going home and just said we should meet for closure 4 weeks later when he's scheduled to be in my area. Well, it's been about 2 weeks, and every time I think of that day, I still break down. I can't believe how everything went down, and I just don't think it's a good idea to see him anymore. I feel like he's made up his mind about the kind of person I am, and I just don't want to be treated the way he treated me that day. I don't know if closure is going to do anything anymore at this point, because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, so in my opinion, I definitely would have blocked this guy already if I was in your shoes. Like, this guy turned into a toxic jerk all of the sudden, pretty much at the drop of a hat. And he did that over you being late for work and being annoyed that you were late. Like, seriously, that's a terrible reason to break up with someone. And you know what? For him to be like, in 4 weeks, we should have some kind of closure. Like, no, that is definitely not gonna happen. I would never agree to that, and I would just move on with my life. Because the way this guy acted was hostile and very toxic. And I just don't think that you deserve to go through that once again. My entitled sister-in-law scammed her mom out of $10,000, claiming that she needed an emergency surgery, but in reality, she just wanted the money so that she could get chest implants. And I'm honestly so blown away by her entitlement. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, my mother-in-law is not a wealthy woman. She had a plan with her insurance where she could have a $10,000 loan at the drop of a hat for medical purposes. And this fact will be important for this story. Now, when it comes to my sister-in-law, she was in a toxic relationship where she and her boyfriend would be drunk 12 to 20 hours a day. They got into a few domestic fights, and one where she had an open wound on her lower back, and another fight caused him to have a broken nose and a black eye. We attempted to intervene between the two of them, but they would literally never give a full story. We would be there during police reports to try and pull more information out, but the stories would always be about how he tripped down some stairs or how she stood up into a piece of glass. We spoke individually with them about getting temporary restraining orders, but neither of them pursued one until their relationship finally ended. Now, they did finally leave each other after she cheated on him for the second time. 2 months after their relationship ended, my sister-in-law went to her mom and told her that she needs an emergency chest surgery, all because of an injury sustained during her relationship with her ex. She wanted her mom to pay for it with the medical loan, and that over time she would pay her back. Well, her mom called me, as I work in the healthcare field, so family kind of calls me about everything medical related, just so she could ask me about what type of surgery she would possibly need. I looked up the surgeon and I saw that he was a local plastic surgeon who mostly did breast augmentations and lifts. I told my mother-in-law to find out the name of the surgery, but my sister-in-law refused to name it, and I told my mother-in-law, do not give her any of the money without knowing what it was for. But unfortunately, it fell on deaf ears as she gave her the $10,000. And wouldn't you guess it, my sister-in-law got a boob job. She literally got fired her first day back to work because she talked back to her boss. She hadn't informed them that she was getting a medical procedure done, and when the boss asked her to hand out food trays for an event, she said to him, I can't do that. Can't you see that I just got a boob job? She later moved out of state and got another job, and she has not paid my mother-in-law a single penny. And my mother-in-law even had to take money out against the house just to pay for it. Now, it's been 6 years since the surgery, and fortunately, my mother-in-law has stopped communicating with her daughter and therefore has stopped enabling her as well. And hopefully she never comes back. Wow, your sister-in-law is a piece of garbage. She lied to her mom just to get $10,000 just so she could get a boob job. Like, that is so unfair and so so toxic, it's not even funny. Like, I can only imagine how much stress the mother-in-law has gone through when it comes to their daughter, and how they've had this tumultuous relationship and have had so many domestic issues in the past. And now, in a last stretch to try and like help their daughter out, they're like, yes, I'll give you $10,000 for the chest surgery, only for them to turn around and be like, psych, I got a boob job, sorry. Like, that is such a massive betrayal of trust. It honestly is disgusting. And this wasn't free money. This is literally a $10,000 loan. It must have been a nightmare to pay that back in a reasonable amount of time. So yeah, your sister-in-law is a massive jerk, and it's a really good thing that she's not around any longer. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My mother-in-law is constantly badgering me to try and have kids, despite the fact that I've chosen to be child-free in my marriage. But now I am heartbroken, and I simply don't know if I should talk to my husband about this, or if I should just stay silent. Here's what happened. Okay, so my husband and I have been married for 2 years, and we have chosen to be child-free. My mother-in-law makes comments about kids all the time, and today I found out she even approached my mother and asked her to put pressure on me to at least have one, since apparently I'm depriving her son and myself of the experience. Now, I told my husband that someone said this to my mother, as he found me crying today, and I had to admit what was hurting me, but I didn't admit that it was my mother-in-law that was behind it, and it's making me think that maybe I should have told him it was her. Now, I need to give some important background for this situation. My choice to be child-free is not an easy one, and it has hurt a lot. I am infertile, and I had around 2 decades of surgery relating to my reproductive organs, and she, my mother-in-law, knows all about this. I love kids and spend as much time with my friends' children as possible, and I always take an active role. But due to the surgeries as well as some awful stuff in my past, along with mental health issues and ADHD, I decided that being a parent wasn't the path for me, and my husband was very pleased, as he wasn't interested in having kids anyways. I feel so heavy with this on my mind, but I don't want to tell my husband, as he is a fixer. He will want to step into action and put things right with his mother, which I am grateful for, but this could really hurt his relationship with her. So I'm treading very carefully about admitting that she's still pushing things behind closed doors. She sometimes does and says things that make me feel like she sees me as a person who took her son away, but most of the time we get along fine, and she's been kind and supportive. Her need to be a grandmother seems to be a blind spot when it comes to being accepting of our life choices. So should I admit it was actually his mother saying all these things, or should I just let it blow over and address it head on if she makes comments to us in person again? What should I do? Wow, your mother-in-law is super toxic. There is no good excuse for her to say those kinds of things, especially considering the awful things that have happened to you in the past that apparently she's well aware of. Like, seriously, why can't people just mind their own business? There was no reason for her to step in and make those kind of comments, and honestly, it's all super disgusting. But on that note, there is no way I would ever let this blow over in some kind of way. I wouldn't just sit by and let this stop happening, because based on the way your mother-in-law acts, it really seems like this is gonna keep happening. She's gonna keep making these comments, and they're gonna be geared towards you. And that is not fair in the slightest. You've made your decision. You don't want to have kids. And honestly, there's nothing wrong with that. But if I was in your shoes, I absolutely would talk to the husband, and I would tell him exactly what's going on. And that doesn't mean that you still can't tell her exactly how you feel, but at least when you tell your husband, the both of you can do it together. Because this lady very clearly crossed a serious line, and that is something that you definitely do not have to put up with. Am I the jerk for throwing my neighbor's cigarette ends back over their fence? Because right now she's complaining I shouldn't have done that because of her kids. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 23-year-old female, and our neighbor is an absolute nightmare. We got along at first, but once the following situation happened, she turned volatile and unhinged. For the sake of the story, we'll call her Jane. Jane is not her real name. Now, Jane is a single mother with a 5-year-old and a 4-month-old baby. It's just our 2 houses connected, and our front gardens are connected with no fence or wall boundary. And it's important to note that she has family and friends very locally that come around a lot. So a few months into living here, my partner and I go to tidy our front garden, and we notice that there's loads of cigarette ends. Now, neither of us smoke, and neither does Jane, but we have seen the mom, who visits a lot, smoke out the front of the house, and usually has a cup used as an ashtray. We assume that she's thrown them on the floor, or the cup has knocked over and the wind has blown them into our garden. And while this is annoying, it's not that big of a deal. We look closer, and there are a lot of cigarette ends. Not just a few like I was hoping, hoping. So I politely texted Jane, informing her of the situation and asked her if she can come and clean them up, as there are quite a lot. Well, she replied bluntly saying that they aren't hers. I replied back by saying that I know she doesn't smoke, but we know that her mom does. And I say again, I know it was probably the wind blowing them over, but there are quite a lot, so can she please just come and clean them up? She then says to me that her mom doesn't smoke out the front and only does it out the back, but I say that we have definitely seen her out the front smoking. But then Jane says that her mom puts them down the drain, which is very illegal where we are. I replied by saying, can you please just come sort them out? And after that, she never replied. Now, we don't put a time limit on it, but we leave it there for a week just to see what happens, and still no one comes to clear them up. We contact our local council about them just in case it happens again, and they said to take pictures, bag them, and count them, and then return them to Jane. So that's exactly what we do. And after doing some collecting, we found 42 cigarette ends. My partner goes outside to clear them up after a week, and I was standing near him, and about halfway through, Jane leaves the house with a guy and a pram, and they both just stopped, they stared at us, and then they walked off. When we had finished and taken pictures, we wrote on the bag 42 cigarette ends. We then sealed it in a Ziploc bag and threw it over the back garden fence into their garden. Well, a few hours later, she comes home and finds them, takes a picture of it, and messages me saying, thanks for throwing these in my garden knowing that I have children. I then pointed out that they were in a sealed bag and that originally they were all loose in our garden where her child could have picked them up and eaten them. And I asked her a week ago to please pick them up. Now, for some additional context, Jane has always been awful to her kids. I mean, we have seen and heard a lot. We were constantly contacting CPS, so her saying that we don't care about her kids is a joke because we cared more than her. So are we the jerks for throwing the cigarette ends back over my neighbor's fence? Because right now Jane is very angry, and at this point we seriously don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. I've dealt with neighbors who have done this kind of stuff before, and trust me, if you let them do it, it will add up so fast. Especially when you have a neighbor that acts like this. Like, it really seems like nothing you ever say or do will ever be good enough, and she will always find some way of weaseling out of responsibility, which already makes things like super stressful as it is, because let's say something bad happens in the neighborhood or to like your property, you would at least hope at the bare minimum that they would be there for you to some degree in terms of like keeping your property safe. But this Jane lady doesn't sound like the brightest tool in the shed. If anything, she sounds like one of those toxic neighbors who is always going to find some stupid excuse just so she can avoid any responsibility in her life. And trust me, I've lived next to people who act like this, and it is so obnoxious dealing with them. And I know in my case, it was like living next to an adult who was actually a toddler. They didn't care about you or anybody else, and they refused to fix any of the stuff that they damaged or did wrong. And that in and of itself was so infuriating on a daily basis. Now, when it comes to these neighbors and all that they've done, I will say it's probably time for you to get a camera of some kind at your front door, pointed directly at the spot that their mom likes to smoke. That way you can prove to them that yes, she does smoke up there, and yes, you do need to clean them up. And also, she's only using her kids as some kind of excuse to make you feel bad, because if her kids are out in the back garden doing whatever they want, especially at 5 years old and 4 months old without any kind of supervision, then that's more of a Jane problem than a you problem. It's just more evidence that she's not a good mom, and she's also not a good neighbor. So no, I don't think you're the jerk, because in my opinion, if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. My entitled friend hired me on to work at her job, but slowly began to prove to me why she was not a good friend at all. And after dealing with months of her not paying me on time, as well as her trying to blame me for things going wrong at the job, I finally hit my breaking point and decided to quit on the spot. And I'm honestly so glad to be away from that toxic workplace. Here's what happened. Years ago, I had a job that I loved, but it was a dead end, so I decided to change jobs. But before that, I met this older woman who worked on the same building but for a different employer. She seemed pretty cool, and we used to hang out when we could, and she said that she would love to work with me someday. Then she got fired and we stopped talking, but just for timing. She had told me that all of her previous jobs had ended badly, but she also explained why it was always unfair. I was young and admired her, so I believed her, and I even helped her get her stuff back, because when she got fired, it was on bad terms, and she wouldn't be allowed in the building any longer. But I never got the details as to why. I found another job after that, then got another at the same time, and lived my life quite happily. COVID hit and I lost one of my jobs. I found a very low-paying one and started to get desperate for money. I remembered my friend from back then and thought that she could give me some advice and some moral support. I never thought that she would would offer me a job because of her history, but in the end, she actually did. Now, trust me, it was not super well paid, but it was better than my other second job, so I did the math, and with those two salaries, I'd be fine again, and I would quit the low-paying job. She is the president of a non-profit foundation with a business partner, and I was going to be the third person on the team. The day I started the new position with her, she told me that she did her math wrong. She could only pay me a very low amount, which was lower than my previous job, almost minimum wage. She also never hired me, so she never paid for Social Security at all. So I was stuck there, really struggling with money, but at least the job was super fun and challenging, and I was working with someone I thought was a friend, so that was kind of good at the time. She paid my salary on time the first 2 months, but then every end of the month, she would literally start crying about her own financial status, how she has no money at all, and she could only pay me a part of it now and then the rest later on. And she did do that, but still, it wasn't an ideal situation. The rest of the month, she would have her nails done, go to expensive parties, and go out on vacations, as well as lend money to her business partner who had substance problems. Things started to get worse every month, but I never thought a friend would screw me over on purpose. And until then, I felt sorry for her. But that was so silly of me. She had started to use money from her in-laws without them knowing, and they started to get suspicious. And I think that's how she managed to pay me, but she never put that into words. It was just these vague implications. We were working on a project for the government, and after the first delivery, the government said there were many errors in our proposal. Well, when we checked it, it was all the things that she had done. But she went ahead and yelled at me and tried to blame me for it. And that's when it clicked in my head. My part wasn't even relevant for that part of the process yet. I asked her to stop yelling at me and to please explain what she needed from me, because she wasn't being clear and I wasn't the one in charge of the faulty parts, so I wasn't sure how to fix that. Well, she just started yelling even more and was now saying that she had a friend in the same field check my work, and apparently it was incomplete. Now, it really was because I needed her part to finish mine, and she would also just keep changing it. Now, that was on a Friday, so I told her I was going to keep working from home and we could talk on Monday. Well, Monday came around and I went to the office, and she wasn't there. I tried to call her, but I still got no response. I texted her that we needed to talk before I started working, but she replied that she was at the ministry, which I knew was impossible for a number of reasons. I then told her that I quit, and I was taking all social media account passwords with me until she paid me my full salary. And it's funny, the week before she was crying about not having any money, but this time I got the money right away, so I gave her the passwords. And that's how I learned that just because someone is your friend, that doesn't mean that it's a good idea to let the important things go. Wow, that really is an awful situation, and I'm so sorry you dealt with that. Like, there are so many red flags in this story, it's not even funny. And I'm sure in hindsight you can probably spot them, but the first glaring one, in my opinion, is how every single job she's ever had has ended badly. Like, I can understand not liking your job or having some kind of conflict at work, but for all of your jobs to end in some kind of like misery and woe, or for you to be fired from every single job, like, that's a massive red flag. Because I've had good jobs and I've had bad jobs, but I've never been fired from all of them. Like, that's insane. Also, what's the deal with her not being allowed in the building? Like, that's really weird and kind of sketchy. It makes me wonder what she did to make that happen, because that doesn't just happen all of a sudden overnight. You have to do something pretty serious for them to be like, yeah, we can't have you in the building. And also for me, the cherry on top of me like quitting on the spot would be this lady not paying me on time. Like, I don't care how many talks I have with my manager where they try to be like, oh, we're a family, we gotta work together. If they don't pay me the money I'm owed for the services I've rendered, then they can expect me to not do that job anymore because I'm definitely gonna quit. Like, that is an unspoken sacred rule of work where if I'm gonna work, you're gonna pay me. This is not a charity and I'm not doing this for free because I need this money to pay rent, and that lady's crocodile tears are not gonna pay for your bills. So truly, good for you for quitting and finding something different, because this lady was sketchy from the very start, and hopefully you never run into that situation ever again. Am I the jerk for standing by my sister and telling our parents they need to mind their own business and leave her be? Because right now they've become incredibly intrusive into her life, and I'm honestly sick of it and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my sister lost her husband when she was 22 years old and became a young widow and a widowed single mom. For the last 16 years, she has not dated or found another romantic relationship, and she doesn't want one. And she has told me this herself. We talked about how yes, she has felt lonely from time to time, and she has spent more time with family and friends when that happens, but that she has never found someone who has made her her feel interested, and she doesn't believe that another relationship is in the cards for her. She loves her husband and she misses him a lot, and when she thinks about romance, it's only with him. It's not just having a partner in general that she wants, but she thinks about him. She had grief therapy, she's been part of a young widows and widowers group, she's not wallowing or miserable, and there are moments of sadness or wishing her life were different, but she's generally happy, and she doesn't want to find someone else. To her, it's unimaginable that she would ever feel that way about another person. She has admitted to being set up with people who are technically her type, but she was never interested and never felt a spark or anything like that. Well, our parents cannot accept her remaining single, and they have talked about how she denied her daughter the chance to have another dad. They talked about how she denied her the chance to see a happy relationship and to experience living with a married couple. My sister has told them she's happy with her life and doesn't want to change it, and I told my parents to leave my sister alone, that she's not wrong to do what she wants and feels is best for her, and that they need to mind their own business because she's a grown woman and can choose to do whatever she wants with her own life. They told me she clearly doesn't know what is or isn't healthy, but my sister chimed in and said that she worked on that in therapy and she was told that there is no rule that she has to fall in love again. She said she just doesn't want to, and that everyone should be able to respect that. Now, when she said that, I agreed, and I backed her up by saying to our parents that it's my sister's life and they will push her away if they don't stop. They told me I shouldn't be condoning this lifetime of widowhood, and my sister said that even if she did find someone else, she would still be Jake's widow, that she will always be his widow no matter what, because she lost him and they were married and they loved each other so much. My parents told me 6 times after this talk, which was more of a fight honestly, that I was wrong for backing my sister up and claiming that it's not their business. So I need to know, am I the jerk for standing by my sister? Because right now, I am still very frustrated. No, your parents are being super obnoxious. They're literally getting involved in your sister's life, and they're just completely disregarding all the things that she's been through. Like seriously, what is wrong with these people? Do they not know that their daughter is a widow and that she's gone through so much pain? Like these people have no business getting involved in this way, and I completely agree with the original poster. This is none of their business, and they definitely should have stayed out of it. A crazy entitled mutual friend has been acting insane lately, as he's become obsessed with me and is now claiming on Instagram that we are in a relationship. And right now, this is all making me extremely nervous, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I've never met this guy before, but a few months ago, he followed me on Instagram. I saw that we had 10 mutual friends, so I followed back, not thinking much of it. I always follow people back if we have mutual friends, so I didn't even ask my friends who he was, and I honestly just kind of forgot about it. Fast forward a few weeks, and I post a selfie and this guy likes it. Then he messages me and compliments me. Now, I was polite and I said thank you, but I did not initiate any other conversation. I guess in an effort to continue the conversation, he asked me a few questions about my dog, with whom I've posted pictures of on my account, and I answered his questions because I thought they were harmless. What followed were a dozen unanswered messages of him introducing himself, talking about himself, and him saying other things that were really creepy. He would say to me, "You're gorgeous, you're such a princess, baby girl, oh yeah." Now, I read them all, but I didn't answer because I was really weirded out. I asked my friends who he was, and they said he wasn't local. A few of them had met him at an event once when he was here, but none were actually close friends with him and didn't know too much about him. I figured not answering would make him go away, since he could see that I read the messages, but it just encouraged him to continue. In the days following the initial messages, he sent similar messages about my appearance and how I have the sweetest personality, which I found odd since I had barely responded to him and he literally did not know me. He then replied to every single Instagram story highlight that I had, and we're talking like over 60 replies. So after that, I blocked him from seeing any future stories. He then messaged me daily, saying things like, "How's my dog doing? How's my boy doing today?" Now, these are the few times I responded because I was like, what is going on? He is my dog, not yours. You literally don't even know him. Now, my friends thought this was all just awkward, but overall pretty harmless since the messages weren't explicit or anything like that. So I felt bad fully blocking him. I figured my obvious disinterest would make him stop eventually, but the messages continued, and instead of reading them and not responding, I just didn't open them. This worked for a bit, but then he realized I was ignoring him and asked what he did wrong. I showed my other friends the messages, and my one guy friend was really concerned. friend. He suggested that we post a selfie together just to make me look unavailable, so I unblocked the guy from my stories just so he could see it. Well, that didn't help, and it just made him escalate the number of messages that he was sending. He got angry and possessive, was saying things like, "I better not be sleeping with that guy," and basically saying really awful things to my friend. And I wasn't gonna ask my friend to do anything else since he does have a girlfriend. At this point, I just decided to be honest and tell him that his messages made me extremely uncomfortable, especially the possessive ones and the ones about my dog, since we literally don't even know each other. He apologized and then said I should come visit him, that he would pay for my flight, and that it would be a dream to hang out. But I said I am definitely not interested in that or even in hanging out. But he said, "Oh, that's okay. I understand that you're shy." And then he said he would come to me instead. I told him I wasn't interested in hanging out with him anywhere in the world and that I'm not interested in him or whatever else he thinks is going on here. And after that, I just straight up blocked him. And I think that was my mistake. He started following me on a new account right after and sent me several messages apologizing. He also followed some of my family members that I had tagged in pictures on my Instagram. I blocked him and privated my Instagram, but then he would come back with another account. He also found my other social media accounts. My friends still had him on their Instagrams, and now they've been showing me that he keeps posting pictures of me, and he's even implying that I sent them to him personally. And he's doing this on his Instagram story and his post with comments about me being his girlfriend, and that he can't wait to come spend the summer with me, and also posting pictures of my dogs while captioning it by saying it's our boy. So he must have saved a bunch of pictures that I had posted. My friends keep messaging him, but he won't take anything down, and I feel so freaked out and embarrassed because our other mutual friends are asking me if it's all true. I know he doesn't know exactly where I live, but I still worry about him coming here, and he knows some of the concerts I'm supposed to be attending because my friends posted about them and tagged me. I guess I just don't know how to navigate this. Does anyone have any suggestions? I don't know what else I could possibly do because I have never been in this situation ever before. This is actually insane behavior. Like seriously, there is so many things wrong with what's going on right now, it's not even funny. First of all, I think it might be time to report this guy to the police and to tell your friends to unfollow this guy. This guy is literally following your every move, and he's even gone as far as becoming obsessed with you. That is really scary behavior. This guy's pretending that you're his girlfriend. This guy's insane. So if I was in your shoes, I would not only report him to Instagram themselves, but I would also go to the police and be like, look, this thing is happening and it's honestly insane. Because what you're dealing with is not normal. This isn't some awkward or quirky thing that somebody's doing. This is literally somebody following your every move while also claiming you as his girlfriend. And you do not deserve that in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for uninviting my brother-in-law from my son's graduation party, all because he is very vocal about disagreeing with my son's choice of college he's gonna go to? Here's what happened. Okay, so my son is graduating high school in 2 weeks. I personally had some turmoil at that age, so I didn't graduate and I had to get my GED a few years later, and I didn't go to college. So I am incredibly proud of him and all that he accomplished in school. He also got into an Ivy League college, which made me even more proud. Now, here's the problem. My wife and several family members, including her brother and father, all went to this same Ivy school. So my wife really pushed him to go there, and she did this at an unhealthy amount. She has always run a tight ship with his schooling over the years, while I've been a bit more lax, and said that if he is legitimately trying his hardest between school and extracurricular, as well as his social life, then all is okay, even if he struggles sometimes. Now that the payoff is here, my wife was insistent that he goes to this school. I've told him that he could go anywhere he wants and go into whatever field that he wants, or he could even take a gap year or go straight to work, basically making it clear that he can do whatever makes him happy. I mean, he got into an Ivy League school. He showed him he's good enough, so now we should let him follow his dreams. My son did 2 visits to this school and confided in me that he did not want to go there because of both the culture and he felt like the program he was interested in was better at another school. He was so scared to tell his mom to disappoint her, but the 3 of us sat down and talked about how he was feeling. Now, my wife was clearly disappointed, but accepted his decision. Although we did get into an argument about a week later about how he might regret this years from now. Once the news broke that he would not be going to the Ivy League school, my wife's family expressed expressed their disagreement with the decision, but I laid down the law with how this was his choice and he's still going to an excellent school and he's pursuing his passion. So I will not tolerate anybody bothering him or telling him that he's making the wrong choice. Now, most did not put up much of a fight, but my wife's brother is being a real jerk about it. All 3 times that we've seen him in the past 2 months, ever since this all started, he has made comments to my son about how the Ivy League school is much better and all this other stuff. I yelled at him the last time when I saw it, and he just gave me this half-hearted apology. Well, like I said, his graduation is in 2 weeks, and his party with family and friends will be a few days after that. My son told me privately that he does not want his uncle to be there because he is uncomfortable around him and doesn't want to feel that way at his party. So I said, okay, no problem. I then texted my brother-in-law that he needs to sit the party out because he is making my son feel bad for his choices. And as you might be expecting, I am now under fire from my wife's family. Everyone's mad that I'm excluding him from celebrating my son's accomplishment and that my son can toughen up and whatnot. And my wife is mad that I went over her head. I felt like my wife would not be willing to cut out her brother, so I made the decision myself. I can't accept partial blame for going over her head, but I have no regrets otherwise. So honestly, am I the jerk in the situation? Because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, it's really a shame how the extended family is acting towards your son. They're trying to make it sound like, oh yeah, this is the worst decision you could ever make, and how he's gonna regret this years down the line. But in reality, like, is he really gonna regret going to the right college for the program he wants to go into? Like, if I was in that kid's shoes, I would want to go to the school that has the better program. And just because a school is Ivy League doesn't mean it's the best in the world at what it does. There very easily could be better programs at different colleges. And it sounds like the son in this story absolutely found exactly where they want to go. Like, why wouldn't people be more excited about that? Because it sounds like they just want him to go to the Ivy League school simply because it's an Ivy League school. Also, how is your wife not seeing that her brother's being really toxic to her son? He's making this big deal about him not going to this stupid school, and he's making things really awkward for this kid. Like, you would think she would back up her kid in this moment and be like, wait a second, okay, this is going just a little bit too far. And yes, I think you really should have had a conversation with your wife before uninviting the brother-in-law, but I personally think that you were completely justified to cut him off and tell him that he can't show up because of the way he was acting. Am I the jerk for telling my parents that they need to find an alternative solution for long-term care for my disabled siblings because I refuse to be that solution? Here's what happened. I'm a 19-year-old male and I have 2 older siblings who were both born with severe disabilities. Their disabilities are related to an inheritable gene that both my parents were carriers of, which is why the both of them have these disabilities. And they had me so that their disabled children would have someone to take care of them when they were gone. And it seriously was a gamble. I could have been disabled just like my siblings, and I had an even higher chance of also being a carrier of the gene. But my parents did not look into that. They initially planned to adopt, but they were rejected because of my siblings being disabled, and it was decided that they could not adequately care for another child on top of them. So they gave in and had me. Once they knew I wasn't disabled at birth, they no longer cared about my future because in their minds it was set in stone. I was raised to take over the care of both of my siblings. I was taught what to do, how to do it, and my parents interfered with my success. They'd pull me out of school enough times to cause trouble, but timed it just right to throw me off and leave me just a little bit behind at school. Their aim was for me to do badly enough to either drop out or not graduate high school, so then I wouldn't leave for college. But I worked my butt off as best as I could. My grades were not the best when I graduated, but they were the best that they could be given the circumstances. I actually only learned about my risk of being a carrier in my final 2 months of high school. My parents didn't care because they never planned for me to marry or have kids. Because again, I was supposed to be a caregiver the rest of my life. Well, I moved out of my parents' house after high school and I'm in college now, and my parents absolutely hate it. I am mostly estranged and have not told them yet, but I got checked for the gene because I always wanted kids, but I knew I didn't want to risk having children with the same disabilities as my siblings. Well, I found out that I'm not a carrier, which is super rare but also such a relief, but it still made me more angry at my parents for not caring. They leave voicemails pretty frequently, shaming me for going to college and moving away and not supporting them or my siblings. They talked about how out of practice I will be, so I decided to call them, and over the phone I told them I was not coming back and that they need to find an alternative solution for long-term care for my siblings because I I will not be that solution. I won't sacrifice the rest of my life to care for them. Well, my parents told me that was disgusting to say, and I should love my siblings more than enough to care for them, especially when they are the highest risk adults. So am I the jerk for saying what I did to my parents? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Your parents are insane for trying to set you up like that and force you to take care of your siblings like that. Like seriously, what is going on right now? They would intentionally pull you out of school just to make sure you're behind. They try to sabotage you ever going to college. And now when you finally call back and say, yeah, I'm not doing this for the rest of my life, you're gonna have to figure that out. They try to guilt trip you and be like, wow, this is family. You have to help them. You should love your siblings. Like, yeah, I love them, but I don't love the way you treated me. The fact that they had a kid simply because they wanted a caregiver for the rest of the adult children's lives, like that is insane behavior, and you do not deserve that in the slightest. So no, you are definitely not the jerk, and I think if I was in your shoes, I would probably just completely block them. I would straight up move on with my life, and I would never allow them to have any room in my life ever again, because these people sound incredibly toxic. Am I the jerk for refusing to put up with my entitled sister's behavior any longer? Because after being treated so poorly for so many years, I've decided that enough is enough, and now I'm refusing to put up with her garbage for another second. Here's what happened. So both me and my sister are currently college students who are back at home for a few weeks until we can move into our respective summer places. Now, I dread having to be around her at all, as she can be fine over the phone, but in person, it's a completely different story. When we were children, she was diagnosed with a severe life-threatening illness and was pretty close to passing away. She spent a long time in the hospital, undergoing various treatments before being able to come home. I know this isn't her fault, but as she's gotten older, it's become clear that she has a sense of entitlement from it. Because she was my parents' youngest child and incredibly sick, she got and now gets anything she wanted. I mean, she even got my dad to buy her own car, despite her being the youngest out of all of their children. She gets new phones and technology whenever she asks for it. She gets her hair and nails and tanning all done whenever she wants, and it has to be with very specific people, otherwise it's a problem. She even calls herself the princess of our family, and this is very obvious to anyone who knows my family at all. What drives me crazy is that she seems to think that my stuff is her own. I have more than siblings than just her, and understand that siblings take care of each other's stuff all the time, but what I get upset about is the fact that my sister has no limits. If she likes it, it's hers, even if it was made for and gifted to me. I don't know if she just likes getting me upset, or if she actually just wants things she has no use for, but I genuinely think she just likes seeing me sad, because the more I think about it, the more I think it's true. She used to like screaming at me and berated me before my doctor's appointments over my eating disorders, all because she didn't want to drive me there and drop me off. Apparently, it was just too inconvenient for her. I really think seeing me cry makes her want to scream at me. Now, honestly, all of this is fine. It's kind of like whatever, you know? I always told myself that I'll move out and I won't have to deal with her, but this week has completely changed. Now, for reference, I'm a lesbian, and I'm in a relationship with this really awesome girl who I just adore, who also, by the way, cannot stand my sister. Now, my sister is a religious Christian and has never been directly homophobic to my face, but she does like to make jokes, especially if they include telling everyone that she can very loudly about how much of a lesbian I am. But this week, though, she decided that using a slur directly to my face would be funny. She refuses to talk to me most of the time, so I went to my mom and I told her that she needed to talk to my sister. I can handle a lot, but I feel as though I'm being pushed to my limit. My parents have apologized to me multiple times for my sister's behavior over the years and told me that they speak with her about everything, but they nor my sister ever seem to change, even when I can't get through the conversation without crying over how frustrated I am. But now I have decided to stop trying to be nice to my sister. Every time she decides to scream at me, tell me how awful I am, make her dumb jokes, or anything else that she does, she will not be met with her nice big sister anymore. I am done just sitting here silently and taking it. Unfortunately, my choice of words towards my sister has made my family quite angry with me. They tell me that I'm overreacting and that I just need to deal with her. We'll both be out of our parents' house soon, so I honestly need to know, am I the jerk for refusing to put up with my little sister any longer? Because right now I am so frustrated and I seriously don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk. Your sister's being obnoxious on purpose because she's been enabled her entire life to act this way. Her parents are basically like, no, don't be mad at her, you just gotta deal with it like the rest of us. That's what they're actually saying, because they've been conditioned to do the same thing. The only reason they don't want you to go against the grain is because that would cause problems for them. And it's so frustrating because you can see the truth right in front of you, but not only does your little sister know that she can get away with saying these awful things, but also everybody else around you is just gonna sit there and be like, wow, what's the problem here? Like, are you kidding me right now? The problem is the little sister acting like an idiot. And you know what? I think you have it right. You're gonna be out of there soon. But in my opinion, I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, you know what? I'm gonna stop being nice. Like, everybody has their limit. I don't care who you are. Everyone's got a point where they simply can't take it any longer. So in my opinion, I think the way you're going about doing this is perfect. This is exactly what I would do. If someone's gonna treat me like garbage repeatedly and always say these horrible things and treat me like I just don't matter, then you know what? I'm gonna believe that the way they're treating me really is how they feel about me, and I'm then gonna drop them out of my life completely. Because not you or anybody deserves to be treated that way, and you should not be expected to put up with her toxic behavior for another second. So no, you are definitely not the jerk, and I think your parents are idiots for basically encouraging this behavior, because this truly is completely unacceptable. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for getting mad at a battery store after they superglued my Pokemon game shut while also giving me the wrong battery? Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened a couple of years ago, and it honestly still makes my blood boil when I think about it. So I had 2 copies of Pokemon Ruby in Japanese, but both of them had dead batteries. So I go to a battery store that used to replace my batteries a decade ago for pretty cheap, and I went back for my 2 games, expecting around the same price, maybe just slightly higher of a price at around $5 a battery. Well, I speak to an employee, and he told me that they can replace the batteries, but they won't know the price. And so I thought, okay, no problem, it shouldn't be that much, right? So I hand them the games. And almost a week later, I had a friend pick it up for me while I was at work, and that's when I found out that it was for $40. I was very shocked and angry, but I thought to myself, okay, whatever, deciding to just go ahead and pay for it. After my friend dropped the games off to me at work, she said they glued the game shut since they couldn't properly seal it, and I was floored. I was so livid that they would glue my game shut. So I later called them asking why they would glue my games, and they explained that they couldn't seal it. So I asked to speak to a manager because of how incredibly disrespectful they were to glue my property shut. I spoke to a manager and we eventually hung up, and I waited a couple of days to hear back. Now, my other friend said he had some glue gone to remove the glue, and after he removed it, he noted they put the wrong battery in. I told the guy the specific battery that they needed, and they ended up putting in a slightly bigger battery. A couple days later, I called back, and I started going off on the manager because I felt like I needed to assert myself, and the manager just told me to calm down and that he was talking to me calmly, so I forced myself to calm down. I told him point blank, they put the wrong battery in, and that's why it wouldn't shut, and it was disrespectful that they superglued my games. They offered to replace it with a proper battery or give me a refund, and I asked for a refund because I didn't want them touching my games ever again. So after I called corporate, I was eventually issued a refund and got to keep the battery. The good part about this whole ordeal is that a friend of a friend was able to lower the battery more and told me that it is a longer lasting battery, and now the game shuts better. I was told that I should write a review, but I decided not to, but part of me really wants to. With this whole ordeal out of the way, I will never again go to that battery store to replace batteries ever again, because that place clearly does not know what they're doing. Yeah, that's really unfortunate that they basically destroyed your game. Like, first of all, you don't even have the right battery fitting into the compartment, which, by the way, I'm pretty sure that's very obvious that it won't fit in there properly, but also they decide to put glue in the cartridge just to close it. Like, seriously, that's so uncalled for. Isn't there like a very specific screw that goes in and out the back of it? Why on earth would they put glue in there? Or better yet, why didn't they just call the client and be like, sorry, we can't fix this? Glue is literally just gonna make it all worse. So seriously, good for you for getting a refund, because these people very clearly did not know what they were doing. My entitled crazy friend ruined our vacation to France by faking multiple mental illnesses just to try and get her way. And right now, after all is said and done, I am completely blown away by her entitlement, as well as the way that she treated me during this trip. Here's what happened. Okay, for the sake of the story, I'm gonna call my friend Elizabeth. Elizabeth is not her real name. I've known Elizabeth, who's 23 years old, for the past 2 years, going on 3. Because we live in the same European country, one with good public transportation, we are able to visit each other often, maybe once or twice a month without breaking the bank. And I've never had any major issues with her. Occasionally, she would snap at me for being a few minutes late to events, which is fine, but never like this. Now, the thing about Elizabeth is that she is a serial dater. This woman has a new boyfriend every 1 to 3 months. I am all for women living their own lives, but my God, she would almost always call me after a breakup, crying to me about how her ex was awful to her and how there were no good men in the world anymore. I was there for her, I was sympathetic. I thought she simply got dealt a bad hand when it came to men, but I've recently come to the realization that she was the problem the entire time. Fast forward to a few weeks ago, and she just got out of another relationship, and naturally she was devastated and wanted to take her mind off of things. I suggested planning a mini weekend vacation to France, meaning that this would be our first vacation together. She was overjoyed and took me up on the offer. We were able to find a cheap hotel in a very well-known city, and one of my friends, who we will call Mary, also not her real name, was able to come along with us. So Mary, Elizabeth, and I took off to France. The first day was lovely, just absolutely lovely. The weather and the people and the food and the transportation were all top tier. Elizabeth then told me that she had plans for us the whole next day, from 9 o'clock in the morning until 9 o'clock at night. And I thought to myself, that's great. At around 8 o'clock p.m. after dinner, I told her that we should head back so that we can rest up for tomorrow. But Elizabeth just didn't like that. She said that she really wanted to go clubbing. So I thought to myself, okay, cool. I told her that we could go, but I would rather not stay out too late because I'm someone who needs my 8 to 9 hours of sleep, especially before going on an all-day outing. And when I said that, she was cool with it. So we go to a bar and then leave to the club at 11 o'clock p.m. To spare you the details, the club was great. Mary, Elizabeth, and myself are big on dancing, so we were having a blast. It was about 1:30 in the morning when I told Elizabeth that we should start heading home, but she said to me, "No, I want to party." So I said to her, "Yeah, girl, me too. But if you want to participate in the morning activities, I need to go home." She sighed and then begged me for just another hour. Well, this hour turned into 3 in the morning, and when I asked to go home again, she started tearing up and said to me that she needed this night out after her breakup. So we ended up staying until 6 in the morning. The bouncer had to clear us out because we were the only ones on the dance floor. She told Mary and I that the bouncer was awful for kicking us out because according to her, technically the club closes at 6:15 and not at 6. She also added by saying, "The bouncer probably has nothing better to do and should be cheated on by his wife." I asked her what her reasoning was behind saying that, and she says, "Oh, I mean, he obviously has issues if he doesn't want to see people happy, so he should also be unhappy." And when she said this, she was absolutely serious, by the way. She was that upset that we got kicked out 15 minutes early. Well, we arrive at the hotel at 6:40, and just as we are about to go in, Elizabeth says that she's hungry. I tell her that I'm heading inside and that she can eat with Mary, but again, Elizabeth doesn't like that. She pouted and said to me, "It would really mean a lot to me if you did something as small as eat with me." So, of course, I go to McDonald's with her. The line was super long, and we didn't get served until about 7:20 in the morning. The whole time in the line, she was telling us about her ex-boyfriends and how they all said she was too much to handle and how they were awful for saying that because apparently all women have emotions that men need to understand and they always refuse to educate themselves. And I honestly laughed internally. I thought to myself, yeah, okay, Elizabeth. We eat and arrive at the hotel at around 7:40, and Elizabeth actually said that she's going to set an alarm for 9:30 in the morning. Also, we don't miss breakfast at the hotel. I told her that I didn't want to eat breakfast and I would rather sleep in. Thankfully, Elizabeth didn't say anything and we all just fell asleep. Well, sure enough, just like clockwork, her alarm goes off at 9:30 and she tells Mary and I to wake up and get ready for food. But when she did that, I just said no. I want to sleep for a little bit longer as I didn't get much sleep at all. She then turns to me and exclaims, "You're ruining this vacation. Seriously, it's just breakfast." So I respond back by saying, "Yeah, it's just breakfast. I don't need to eat. I'll eat later." Elizabeth then becomes really quiet and then leaves the hotel room for breakfast. Mary joins her and I just close my eyes to go back to sleep and they return at about 10 o'clock. When they return, Elizabeth is silent. I ask when we're going to leave the hotel to get our day started. She says to me, "Well, you're already ruining it, so I don't know." At about this time, I'm pretty fed up with her. So I say to her, "Okay," and then I go back to sleep. Elizabeth and Mary ended up sleeping until 1 o'clock p.m. and I got up a little bit earlier than them to get ready. Well, they take 2 hours to get ready, so we don't even end up leaving until about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Now, mind you, the entire time Elizabeth isn't speaking to Mary or myself. Mary asks asked her what's going on, and I just sat there and I was like, girl, I have no idea. We thought it would be great to start our day thrifting and then heading to a cheap cafe for lunch. When we arrive at the thrift store, Elizabeth sits on the floor and stares at her feet. I ask her what's wrong, and she replies by saying, "It's just that you and Mary are disrespecting my time and the day is ruined. We have no time to do things that I planned. I'm also in a lot of pain due to my illness." When she said that, I apologized and I asked her what her illness was because this is the first time I'm hearing anything about it. She said to me, "You know, I'm just generally mentally ill and sometimes it gets worse." I apologize again and I say to her, "Elizabeth, I'm really sorry. I didn't know you were diagnosed with something. What can I do to help you out?" She then said to me, "Oh, I'm not officially diagnosed, but I know I have OCD and multiple personality disorder. I've been going to a new therapist every other week, but I haven't found one that will give me medication. They're all old and they don't understand my issues. Oh God, I'm so tired and I have a headache. I want to eat some food." Well, I called Mary over and I told her that we're going to the cafe a little earlier than planned. We reached the cafe and I purchased 2 coffees as a treat for the girls, one for Mary and one for Elizabeth. As a side note, I don't drink coffee. Elizabeth glared at me and said, "You didn't even ask what I wanted. You just bought me some coffee. Are you being serious right now?" After she said that, I apologized and offered to get her some tea or some water, but she just rolled her eyes and went to sit at a table. Mary was extremely stressed and told me that she didn't know how to help Elizabeth and asked me what to do, but I just looked at her and I shook my head because seriously, I had no idea myself. The day goes on and Elizabeth is mostly unresponsive, aside from her complaining about Mary. Now, here's the thing. Mary has done nothing wrong this entire trip. Admittedly, she likes to stand at attractions for just a little bit too long, but we're on vacation, and it really isn't a big deal if you want to stare at the Eiffel Tower for 30 minutes rather than just walk by it, which Elizabeth wanted to do. In fact, Elizabeth, whenever Mary would leave to use the restroom, would latch onto me and start saying, "Oh my God, she is holding us back. I'm so mad at her. Why is she taking forever? It's just the stupid Eiffel Tower." I told her that we're on vacation and we should accommodate everyone's wishes within reason. Her response to that was pouting and going back to being quiet. Now, the deal breaker though was what happened between Mary and Elizabeth. Mary was trying so hard to be tolerant of Elizabeth and her mental issues, but this is the single thing that just completely broke it. Mary wanted to get cash out of an ATM, and the ATM itself was maybe about a 5-minute walk away from an attraction that Elizabeth wanted to see. Well, Elizabeth started to argue with Mary that we didn't need cash and that it was going to take up too much time from their trip. Yes, you heard that right. The 5-minute walk to the ATM was too much of a walk. Well, Mary responded by saying, "Okay, but I want cash, so I'm going to go get some cash. You can come with me or you can keep acting like a baby. Not everyone around here is going to give you the princess treatment." Well, as you can probably imagine, Elizabeth was very unhappy with that. She actually turned to me to look for help, but I just shrugged my shoulders and said, "I mean, it is a 5-minute walk." Now, this was at around 6:00 p.m., and soon after, we headed to a restaurant for dinner. The entire time, Elizabeth didn't say a word. She pointed at the menu items instead of saying what she wanted to the waiter, and during the middle of the meal, Elizabeth burst into tears. Mary and I tried to cheer her up by offering to buy dessert and maybe go to a spa afterwards, but Elizabeth wasn't having it. She just returned to being quiet while we finished our meals. On the way back to the hotel, she said, "I'm sorry, that was one of my multiple personalities. I can't control myself when that happens. You two have given me so much stress today. I couldn't help but let my personalities out." She then says to me, "This is all very triggering for me because my ex-boyfriend from 3 years ago didn't understand how to deal with my mental issues, and it looks like you two don't know how to deal with them either. You need to better educate yourself about mental illnesses because you don't know which one of your friends or coworkers have them." Well, when she said that, Mary and I just looked at each other with wide eyes. Like seriously, how do we respond to that? We arrive at the hotel and Elizabeth and Mary are dead quiet. They're just scrolling on their phones. I hear Elizabeth sniffling every now and then, trying to hold back her tears. And both of them are texting me, talking garbage about each other. Elizabeth was complaining about Mary, and Mary was rightfully so complaining about Elizabeth. And this literally went on for 2 hours. I finally say, "Okay guys, so what are we doing tonight?" And both of them let out a sigh and turn in the opposite direction of me. So as you can probably guess, we didn't go out. At around 10:00 p.m., they decided to give it a go in talking it out in front of me. Both of them expressed how much pressure they were feeling throughout the trip, and eventually they made up, but by then it was too late to get ready because the bar we wanted to go to closed within an hour. On the way back home, we hop in a car for from a carpooling app. The guy picked us up at a specific location and was set to drop us off at a specific location. Well, Elizabeth thought that the drop-off location was too far away from her home, so she told me to tell the driver to drop us off directly at her house. But I told her no, the driver is only supposed to drop us off at the drop-off location on the app, and if we were to drive to her house, it would be an extra 50 minutes just to drive there. Well, as you can probably guess, Elizabeth became quiet again, and after an hour in the car, she texted me and said, "You're being a pushover. You have to stand up for yourself in situations like this. It is very unfair for him to drop us off so far away, especially from my home. You need to speak up." Now, when she said this, I of course replied by saying, "No thank you. We agreed on a drop-off location, and it would be unfair to change it at the last minute." Now, as you can probably guess, she didn't speak to me after arriving home. Now, at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. I've never met someone so difficult to be with ever. I mean, where should I go from here? Should I confront her about her behavior, or should I do something else? What should I do? Okay, this is the funniest thing I've ever read in my life, because Elizabeth is absolutely out of her mind. Like, dude, she faked a mental illness just so she could try and get her way. She ruined this trip by being so entitled and was complaining anytime she didn't get her way. Like, literally, nothing was ever good enough. Like, why are you even friends with this lady in the first place? This does not sound like a good friend. If anything, this sounds like a very selfish person who will literally say or do anything to try and get her way. So if I was in your shoes, I would drop her like a ton of bricks. I would say, no, we are no longer friends and I'm never spending time with you ever again. Like, why would you want to be friends with someone like that? She is very clearly obnoxious to be around. She is very high-strung, and she clearly has no wiggle room for anything in her life. Like, that sounds absolutely miserable, and I really think that you can find better friends. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for telling my husband's parents and sister to not use me in their sick and twisted scheme to erase my husband's late wife? Because right now, they're saying that I overreacted, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I'm married to a widower. We've been married for 4 years, together for 6, and we've known each other for 8 years. We met at a grief support group as I lost my sister to cancer around the same time that he lost his late wife. We bonded and supported each other, and our relationship happened slowly over the 2 years of being friends. Now, one thing I have always known is that his love for his late wife has never faded. In fact, he never wants it to fade. He misses her every single day, and so do his children. He struggled with the idea of finding someone else, not least of all because his family started pushing 13 months after his loss. In time, he wanted this himself, and we fell in love. But I have always known that there would be no us without his loss. I was never jealous or insecure of that. I mean, I love his love for his late wife. It tells me how amazing he is as a person. It's also good for his kids to see the love he still holds for their mom. My sister's widower remarried after 6 months and has erased my sister with their children. He stopped me having a relationship with them as well, and I absolutely hate it. The kids being good with us was the most important thing to us when we became something more. The only condition they had to their support was their mom. They didn't want her to be forgotten. They didn't want my husband to stop talking about her or for her photos to disappear from the house. Now, some did come down, but they're still in the house, just not on the walls, and there are still photos of her around. And you know what? It works. I tell my daughter, who's 2 years old, and I will tell my son that I'm pregnant with, that she's their big sibling's mom and daddy's late wife. They will know who she is and what she means to our family. But my husband's parents and sister don't like that my husband's late wife is still very much loved and kept alive. Simply put, they just didn't like her. They didn't approve of my husband getting married at 20 and loving someone who came from a very unfavorable family, and they judged her very harshly for it. They think that I'm far better and expect me to replace her. They were especially horrified that my husband keeps photos of her in his wallet and on his desk at work, and there are also photos of me in both. Recently, they brought this up with me and told me that I should forbid my husband from doing this. They said it is horribly disrespectful to me, and it has prevented my husband's teenage children from truly embracing me as their mother. They told me to march right up to him in front of everyone and tell him that he cannot keep the photos of his dead wife anymore. It bothered me so much that they were so callous about it. So I told them straight up to not use me in their sick and twisted scheme so that they could erase my husband's late wife. off because I wanted no part of it. They focused on the sick and twisted aspect, and they are now saying that I called them sick and twisted and accused me of overreacting to their support. My husband was furious with them when he heard about this and told them to be thankful that his kids didn't hear about this. So honestly, am I the jerk for saying what I did to my husband's family? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. No, you're definitely not the jerk, because what they were planning to do really was sick and twisted. Like, their plan to get rid of his late wife and try to pretend like she didn't exist is just so disgusting. Like, seriously, that is so messed up. And if this really is coming from some kind of grudge they had with his late wife, where they're basing this off of a decision that was made years ago, like, that is so disturbing and so uncalled for. And it really shows how much they just don't care about their son. They would rather make him miserable by trying to erase his late wife from his life instead of embracing what's happening right now and be okay with him still loving his late wife. Because the fact that they actually tried to do this is so uncalled for. And if I was in your shoes, there's no way I would ever put up with that. A woman calls my animals pests in my own home, even though I'm trying to sell her daughter one of my snakes. And I'm just so glad to have that lady out of my house because her attitude the entire time was so obnoxious. Here's what happened. Okay, I will never understand calling someone's pet disgusting just because you don't like that type of animal, let alone in someone else's home. If that person has such a gross animal as a pet, they probably love that animal as much as they would a cat or a dog. So for a bit of context, I live in an apartment complex on the 9th floor, and I have a ton of animals, including pet rats, which I bred, and it's all as a hobby that I'm very passionate about. I also own a bunch of reptiles, which is an odd combination, but I love both equally. And I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, but it is immediately clear if you come in that they are well taken care of. So I was looking to rehome one of my ball pythons, and when rehoming a reptile, I make sure they go to a good home where they will have as much space and expertise as here, if not more. So I found someone with a lot of experience as well as a ton of space for this little guy. And this is where the story unfolds. I welcomed the new owner into my home to pick up the snake, who was a very nice young woman. She was together with an older woman who I assume was her mother, and her mother immediately went off about how terrified she was of heights, which is not an issue, of course. I am also scared of heights, and a lot of visitors say that they don't like how high up my house is. I tried to say that I was also scared when I first moved in, but she very loudly spoke over me and didn't even look at me. So I didn't really think much of it, and then I just moved on. I then opened the door to my living room, and the first thing this woman sees is some of my rats. She then loudly exclaims, "This house is also filled with vermin." Now, I don't live in an English-speaking country, so this is not exactly what she said, but more or less it is the same. Her tone the whole time was just loud and mean and very judgmental. As someone with rats and snakes for pets, I am used to people giving me reactions like this. So instead of getting mad, I tried to tell her I love these animals a lot. She once again didn't listen and just spoke over me. And this is where normally I would just kick her out, but the daughter seemed very ashamed of her mother, and I also just wanted this sale to happen. I mean, it's not her fault after all. Also, considering the mother also owned reptiles, I thought it was weird that she would respond this way, since she probably knows what it's like when people say this about her own pets. Anyways, I just ignore the woman, and I talk with the daughter, who was super sweet the entire time. My guess is that she doesn't bother telling her mom to stop, because it probably just makes things worse. I also mentioned how I was saving up for a service dog, but the mom couldn't help but say, "In this house?" The daughter then scoffed at her comment, and I guess she said that because I live in an apartment, but I am always at home and I have all the time in the world to walk my dog. Or maybe because my living room was a bit messy when this happened. Either way, it's not for her to judge on so little information. Both me and my boyfriend felt like slamming the door in her face after that comment, and I think if she made one more comment, I probably would have. I honestly just felt bad for the daughter. Luckily, they left after that, and I got some nice pictures of the snake in his now home, and I am so happy that he went to a good home. But next time, I think the mom should definitely stay in the car. Yeah, that's a really rude thing to say in somebody else's house. You don't just walk in and be like, "Oh my god, there's vermin everywhere. This place is a mess," as well as just act rude and really loud and obnoxious the entire time. It's like you do know you're a guest in someone else's property, right? Because the least she could have done is be on her best behavior and try to be respectful in someone else's home. An entitled jerk nearly cost me my job after he does some shady business practices that somehow fall on my back. So I decided to get some revenge by investigating his previous jobs, and as a result, I exposed him for committing nearly $1 million worth of fraud to his customer base. And I've honestly never felt better about getting back at somebody in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm going to keep this intentionally vague because this has been a complex situation that requires a lot of backstory. I'm a 29-year-old male, and I own a specialized equipment cleaning and maintenance company. I've been running the company for the past 12 years. I take great pride in my work, and I run an honest business. We service everything from government facilities to small mom-and-pop operations, and I try to make everything clear, transparent, and honestly priced as possible. For the last 10 years, I've had a great relationship with a company that we will simply call the Big Company. Now, this Big Company is a service provider, which is something of a middleman actually in my industry, and they contract me to service roughly 35% of their customer base, and we have grown to have a mutual respect for one another, and they are probably my largest customer. Well, roughly 2 years ago, the Big Company brought on another service provider to contract, which is owned by a shady businessman. This shady jerk claims that he has many different skills and credentials and handles a lot of the more maintenance and installation side of things for the Big Company. I often do follow-up work at businesses that he's done installs at, and trust me, it's not good. There's improperly installed equipment, there's crazy repairs and electrical work that just doesn't make any sense. I mean, it's horrible. Talking to customer after customer, I find that he's taking advantage of their mechanical ignorance, upcharging 400% the price of parts, and even charging double, if not triple, the usual going hourly rate for this kind of work. For example, a $300 part that would take 2 hours to install, he's charging $1,500 just for the part and another $1,500 for the labor. I mean, this is insane behavior. I mention it to the Big Company, and they tell me that he's such a knowledgeable and experienced guy that usually those kinds of guys come at a premium. So I think to myself, whatever, I'm just gonna leave it be and stay in my lane. Well, fast forward to about a year, which is right about the time that my troubles start. I get a call from the owner of the Big Company telling me that we have a new account and that they are a little bit more complicated and a little out of our warehouse. They then ask me if I can please take the account. I say to them, sure, and within a week I'm down at the account doing a cleaning and maintenance. The type of system that they have is a bit more complicated, but I'm very experienced and familiar with these systems, so it's not really an issue. Well, or so I thought. I go to start everything up, and the system isn't turning on properly. The owner comes in and says, hey, we're gonna have to start operations in a little over an hour. Are we good to go? I tell him, well, the system seems to not want to start. I'm gonna try and track down the issue, and we should be good to go. He gives me a frustrated huff, and then he leaves the room. 15 minutes later, I get a call from the shady businessman. He asks me if I'm on the account that I'm currently at, and when I say yes, he says to me that the owner wants me to stop work immediately and head out, claiming that he's going to be coming down there to take over. Now, the owner comes back in the room and confirms exactly this. He says to me, hey, we're like 45 minutes from open, and we've used the shady businessman in the past, and we just need to get the system going, so we're going to use him. So I say to myself, sure, and then I just take off. Well, fast forward and a few days go by, and I get a call from the account. They tell me I'm going to need to call my insurance and file a claim. They say that their system is broken. It needs a new motor, which is going to be about $58,000 just to repair. We go back and forth for a while with me trying to figure out what they're talking about, and they're adamant that I broke this system on the word of the shady businessman. The owner then said that I need to call the insurance or I would see them in court. So I call up my insurance, and they're specific to my industry and have specialists that know the ins and outs of this job. I tell their expert every step I performed in my work, and they say there's no way I damaged the motor, but they'll take care of everything that goes on. A little while later, I get a call from the shady businessman. He says to me, hey man, I'm sorry, it wasn't meant to be you. I ask him, what are you talking about? He then says to me, well, to be honest, I had done a lot of installation work for this company like 6 months back, and they owe me like $12,000. I figured if their system wasn't working, they'd call me in a pinch and have to pay me the money they owe me to get me down there. Plus, I'd have some guaranteed work doing the repairs on their system. It was supposed to be one of the big company guys though, and not you, so sorry about that. Now, when this guy said that, I was livid. This guy basically set up a trap in the system so that when it was being taken apart, the release of this sensor would short the motor. I try everything I can to get him to admit it again, or even text me or email me, or at least say it on the phone, since anything now that I'm collecting is just straight up evidence, but he doesn't fall for it and doesn't say anything further. So I call up my insurance and I tell them exactly what happened. They say they'll get everything taken care of, and honestly, that's all I can do. I tell the account, which is a pretty small business, and trust me, they're just as livid as I am. See, the thing is, the shady businessman is a smooth talker. He makes up a lot of complicated stuff the customer just doesn't understand, and they just think he's the smartest guy around. So far, he's cost this small business nearly $70,000 in unnecessary work. I then warn off my customer base from this guy and try to get word around in the industry a little bit, but it's also hard to do, especially while seeing some bitter dude without any evidence trying to blame shift. 4 months go by, and I get a call from the account's insurance. It's a standard business insurance, and the agent on the other line is a complete jerk. Apparently, he worked in the industry for a short while and considers himself an expert. So imagine a surgeon getting lectured by someone that took an anatomy class one time. This guy was so obnoxious. He's telling me that I need to get a different insurance company because my insurance is garbage. They've denied the claim because they're claiming it's not my fault, and anyone with half a brain can figure out that I'm at fault. I explain the situation to him, and he just thinks I'm some dude trying to avoid accountability. They've paid out $58,000 for repairs on this system, and they want me to pay $1,000 for the customer's deductible, claiming that this is non-negotiable. Either pay up or I will see them in court. Now, at this point, I'm so over this situation, so I just pay the $1,000 and move on. Well, that same day that I'm picking up supplies from a warehouse, I run into the big company's owner and the owner of an even bigger company that I've been trying to pick up as a customer. We get to talking and I tell them about the insurance call I got. I explain the backstory just a little bit more, and their faces both go pale. Apparently, they've both been using this shady businessman, and they've been having all kinds of issues. But he's such a smooth talker that they've never connected it to him. They begin telling me all the issues they've been having at their different locations, and this is everything from electrical problems to some state-of-the-art equipment that was installed by this guy that created a whole slew of problems that, surprise, surprise, only he could fix. Now, at this point, they're curious if I can take over handling his role for them. They want to cut complete ties with him. So I tell them certainly. I've expanded what my business can cover, and we can definitely take over the backlog of work this shady businessman has waiting for him. The next day, they both send me lists of all the work they're waiting on him to do, and one by one, I start putting together quotes for each job. The list they sent me has this shady businessman's existing quote figures on there, and I'm finding that most every quote I'm putting together is half, if not the quarter of the price, and that's being generous to my own wallet. Some jobs include fees for things that sound complicated, but they are just made-up terminology. One job, for example, he has upcharged the equipment cost from $75 for the part all the way up to $600, and he's also charging $1,800 in labor for one man with a 2-hour install, and has added an additional hazard material charge, which is not at all a thing we do for this job. And that charge alone is $1,200. So we're talking a $3,600 total to a little mom and pop brick and mortar, but then I step in and drop the material down to $75, the labor down to $600, and drop the hazmat removal entirely. So they went from $3,600 all the way down to $675 only. Now, we are so specialized that really there's only a few of us in the state, and this mom and pop felt like they had no choice. On another job, this guy was trying to charge $15,000 in labor for something that literally one guy could have done, plus an additional mileage fee of $400, despite the fact that this guy lives 10 miles away. He also put down a material transportation fee which doesn't even exist. Like, the 6 parts that he was bringing to this job could have fit inside of my backpack. Overall, for this job that I took over, the shady businessman was trying to charge $20,000 for it, but I ended up only charging $3,000 for it. And this is another small business trying to open a second location, and this guy is being so shady and sketchy with his pricing. He's going to drive them out of business as they're trying to take a leap and open a second location. It's honestly so heartbreaking. All in all, after I priced everything out, he had bid out a little over $1 million in work for himself over the next 6 months that I got down to just over $280,000. And I simply could not believe that this is the way he was pricing things. The new customers that I've inherited have all been so grateful and gotten me connected with even more work in just a short while. And I've easily doubled my business as a result of this over such a short time. On the other end of things, the shady businessman is apparently not doing well. These smaller businesses have some sort of Facebook group that word has been going around to not use him, and has gotten to the bigger businesses and corporations, and now his credentials have been exposed as completely bogus. Businesses that he was doing work for, as well as big household names, are calling me to take over as their local provider, and it really is just the start. So I genuinely hope people start taking legal action against this guy, because taking advantage of businesses often struggling to get help simply because you want some money is incredibly toxic, and this guy absolutely deserves to get shut down. Wow, that is so sketchy. It's crazy to me that someone would actually try to charge these kinds of prices and still think that they can get away with it, especially in front of someone like the original poster. Like, obviously they know what they're doing, and they obviously know how to price things correctly. So for them to literally shave off what, $800,000 from the original price? That's an insane markup from this shady businessman, and it is so toxic that he did this to small businesses that are already probably struggling in some way. So good for the original poster for setting things right, as well as improving their business all off the back of this shady jerk. And hopefully karma can work its magic by getting this guy in the trouble that he absolutely deserves. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled Karen and her husband cuss me out and call me horrible names after they don't get exactly what they want at the car rental shop I was working at. And as a result, they not only got banned from renting from our location, but they also got permanently banned from our company nationwide. Here's what happened. So I was working my shift at a car rental company at our local airport and was helping a customer with swapping a vehicle that he was having an issue with when a group of elderly entitled jerks walks past the customer service booth and out onto our parking lot. There are two rental brands owned by the same company on the lot, and there's one that's more of a hand-holding experience, while the other is more of a self-service concept. So generally, you don't have to stop if you know where you're going. So I assumed, wrongly of course, that this was the latter group of clientele. Another group did what you do when you are unsure of what to do and approached the nearest and only employee working on the lot at the moment just to ask for some kind of directions. The customer I was originally helping graciously told me he was in no rush and to go ahead and help this other group. So I say to myself, awesome, that's easy. It will only take a second, so I get them moving. Sure enough, as I point the way over to the lanes where they can pick up vehicles from, this entitled Karen comes storming up to me with a wad of paper in her hand. I ask her if she needs help with something, and she says to me, waving the papers in front of me, "Our reservation says skip the counter and go out to the lot, but there are no cars parked out there with the brand we reserved." I say to her, "Yes, ma'am. Generally, we do try to consolidate during low volume days, so you don't have to walk as far to get to the vehicle. Do you mind if I look at your reservation so I can get you all pointed in the right direction?" The entitled Karen begrudgingly hands me the confirmation papers, and sure enough, as is typical with this method of doing things, the pages they printed list everything except what size vehicle they booked. She continued to tell me about how our business is supposed to be run, as if I don't have 3 years of experience doing it. And as I finish flipping the pages after finding a reservation number, I begin to say that I'll be happy to check this out, but she interrupted that by angrily snatching the papers out of my hand. Now, while you might not think it, some of these places are very corporate environments, and there is very little room for aggressive behavior. So this was definitely strike one. I very quickly dropped my higher-pitched, quirky customer service voice for my serious voice by saying, "Ma'am, I need you to relax." But when I said that, this is when she started swearing at me while talking about, yet again, how cars are not where she wanted them to be. At this point, I started waving my hands side to side, and I tell her, "Yeah, at this point, we will not be renting you a vehicle. I will go ahead and be canceling your reservation for you." She looks at me and says, "You can tell my husband." But I just say, "Okay, go ahead." Her husband arrives shortly after her and asks, "Okay, what's happening?" I say to him, "Sir, your wife has been aggressive and swearing at me, so you will not be renting a car with us this evening, and I'm now gonna have to ask you to leave my lot." He looks at me and says, Wait, come on, there has to be something we could do." I say to them, "You can head back inside because you will not be renting anything from us this evening." While the men headed inside, this entitled Karen stayed behind. She was asking me, "What's your name? I'm gonna leave you a bad review." But I look at her and I say, "I'll do you one better. Here's my business card." The entitled Karen looks at me and says, "Thanks, I'll make sure to tell everybody that you're an absolute jerk." And when she says that, I think to myself, nice, she's doubling down. I think I'll do the exact same thing. As she snatches the card from me, I begin to walk past her to get the reservation sheet from her husband. She shouts at me, "Don't you touch me." But I respond back by saying, "No one is trying to touch you. Sir, I need to borrow that sheet of paper from you. All of you will be going on our do not rent list." Now, he ignored me while the three of them walked away, but I decided not to further escalate the situation, but I definitely knew that this was not over yet. Now, here's where it gets outrageously stupid. The cell towers near the airport have been down the past week, and normally Usually, I would send a text message notifying my staff about if there was anyone we could not be able to rent to for whatever reason, but because of the cell towers, I couldn't do it. The other manager came back from his lunch break, and I was able to quickly tell him I got cussed out, all before getting back to guiding people to their cars. And while I was about 30 feet away, I turn around and just take a guess of who you think I see walking around the parking lot. Yeah, that's right. I see the 3 people I just turned away for their bad behavior issues. I jog over to the other manager, and I let him know that those were the people I turned down and point out the lady who chose violence. So I turn and jog after them. I say to them, "Hey, we just had this conversation. You are not renting here." The husband replies by saying, "I already paid at the counter. You have my money. We're taking this SUV and we're leaving." I said to him, "Well, I'll gladly refund your money, but you are not leaving here in one of our cars. Get your belongings and get out." Now, the entire time, the wife sat in the back seat, glaring at me like it was my fault that she cannot control herself, while the third man who was with them looked really sad. He ended up approaching me in a last-ditch effort, and I truly really felt for this guy. He had cancer and wanted to go to his niece's graduation, and they would be back in 2 days, but they just needed some help getting there. And you know what? I wanted to help him. I really did. But like I said, it's a corporate environment. You cannot be aggressive and you cannot cuss me or my staff out before you even actually become my customer, and then still try to get into a vehicle. All that's gonna get you is reported to our risk department, which is pretty rough because being labeled as an adverse risk means that you cannot rent with our car rental brand, which is, for many insurance carriers, the #1 choice for insurance replacement when you're in an accident, and many insurance companies do not have a second option. Also, unfortunately for the first man and woman who narrowly avoided being added to that list when they walked out the first time, I now had access to their reservation with their complete driver's license attached. So honestly, any consequences that have come their way are quite literally their own fault. Wow, this is incredible. Not only did they get denied service, but they also got banned from that brand across the nation. Like seriously, this is exactly what they deserve. You can't just treat people like garbage, try to double down on what you're gonna do to these people in their jobs, and then be like, "Oh my god, what's happening? Why are you banning us?" Like that's some really convenient amnesia there, Karen. Where was this sensibility when you were cussing out that person at the front desk? So you know what? In my opinion, they got exactly what they deserved, because all they needed to do was be reasonable and patient with the front desk worker. And if they had done that, then all of this could have gone away and they could have seen their niece one last time. Am I the jerk for not helping my ex-girlfriend in a time of need simply because of the way she was acting? Here's what happened. Okay, so for a bit of backstory, me and my ex split up a couple of days ago after a year-long relationship. We met at work and we are co-workers right now, and with the both of us being expats in a European country, we quickly developed an interest in each other and began dating. However, our relationship was tumultuous. She comes from an awful background, leading to untreated conditions such as PTSD and anger management issues. On our last day together, following one of our frequent arguments, she left for her place and texted me declaring she wanted no further contact even at work. Well, a few days later, I received a message from her on our work chat telling me that she needs my help like never before. This is an emergency. Now, I was away from my desk at the time, so I replied later somewhat distantly, stating that I was busy at the moment, but I could assist her later on the following day. She responded that she had lost all her money in a scam call and she was panicking, unsure of what to do, but I reminded her of her previous request for no contact. Well, she then followed this by launching into a raged panic attack, blaming me for her loss, suggesting that if I had just responded promptly, she might have avoided the scam altogether, while finally resorting to name-calling. Now, it's important to know that I've helped her through the entire course of the relationship in all of her issues, but she always responds by saying that I've never done anything to help her, which is just completely outrageous. Nevertheless, I agreed to meet her to address the immediate problem, on the one condition that we would focus solely on finding a solution and nothing else. So I rearranged my schedule, leaving work early, and drove to meet her. Upon meeting up with her, she began complaining about never having anyone to help her in times of need, which I just chose to ignore and started calmly outlining the available options. You know, stuff like reporting it to the police or the bank. So I accompanied her to the police station just so she would have someone familiar next to her. When the officer listened to the description of the story, he went to his office to draft a report, leaving us alone in the waiting room. Well, instantly she goes into trigger mode. She starts shouting, "When I say it's an emergency, you should react fast, and that's kind of your fault now. No matter what I've told you, now is way different." Now, here's the thing. She didn't acknowledge at any point that I was there trying trying to help, nor said that she was sorry for anything that she said. My reaction to her comments was to remind her that since she thinks that she deserves better people around her, she should have called them to help her out. She then responded by saying, "I did, but no one answered, which is why I called you." Things finally got to the roof for her, where she accused me again that this is kind of my fault, in which my reaction was to get my jacket and just straight up leave. Hours later, I received dozens of messages on how I'm a huge jerk and that I should have never done that to her and that she wishes me the worst. So seriously, am I at fault in this situation? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all, and if anything, I can kind of see why this relationship didn't work out. Like her attitude when you finally do show up and help her out, all she does is blame you and be like, wow, this is your fault. So honestly, if I was in your shoes, I would have walked out as well, because the way she was acting was completely inappropriate. My entitled toxic coworker is constantly trying to get me in trouble with my boss, as she is constantly complaining about how I do my job, and has even gone as far as taking secret photos of me that she is sharing with my boss just to try and prove that I'm not doing my job. And now I feel completely overwhelmed and I'm considering quitting my job, because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 25-year-old female, and I started what I thought was my dream job in December. It was honestly amazing until about a month ago, when I was switched to working closely with another coworker who we will call Janice. Janice is not her real name. She very quickly started having problems with the job I was doing. For example, she would get upset about me not cleaning something thorough enough, or not maintaining our assigned area to her standards, which she never even communicated to me, by the way, as well as a variety of miscommunications, such as when she told me that she was going to take care of a task, and I didn't realize that she actually wanted me to help her finish up after I was done with what I was doing. Janice never directly told me that she was upset, but instead, I just got pulled into a meeting one day with my boss, and he told me everything that was going on. And honestly, I was a bit blindsided by this, as I thought I was doing a good job up until that point, and she had given me no indication that she was unhappy with the job I was doing. To be completely fair, a lot of these concerns were legitimate criticisms, which I've done my best to learn from and not repeat those mistakes. However, Janice has since started reporting every imperfection in my work to my boss. Some of these issues have included an area getting dirty again, which is faster than she thought it should after I cleaned it up. And I even asked her if it was good when I was done, and she said yes. And she also just keeps complaining about stuff being dirty or not up to her standards. And just to be clear, I am constantly checking in with her whenever we are working together, asking if I had done things correctly or if she would rather I do things differently, and she always told me that I was good. Last week, I was working with one of my coworkers who we will call Carl, who is also fairly new, but has been here slightly longer than I have, and I was working with him on a large project that involved heavy lifting outside on a hot day. For reference, we live in Florida, so it's already pretty warm here. After working for a little over an hour, we took a breather to go to the bathroom and drink some water. Now, this was all during one of the allotted break times that we are all entitled to, and it couldn't have taken us longer than 15 minutes. While drinking water and making small talk, we noticed Janice stick her head around the corner, hold up her phone, and take a picture of us. She did this again about 5 minutes later, after which we decided to cut our break short. She wasn't even trying to hide it or anything. It was almost like she waited for us to stop working just so she could take pictures of us slacking off. I just don't know what to do anymore. I'm so terrified to stop working for even a second. I'm scared to go to the bathroom except on my lunch break. In fact, whenever I'm left to work in private, I just break down in tears because I'm so stressed by this pressure to be perfect. Some of my other coworkers have started treating me differently than before, simply because they know that Janice doesn't like me. Carl reported the picture taking to our boss, but I don't think anything will come of it because Janice has been here for so long. She's practically untouchable. I've started applying to some other jobs, but leaving this job would be a huge step backwards in my career and would also mean a pay cut that I haven't budgeted for. I guess I just want to know if all of these things are just normal bumps in the road that will eventually pass, or if I should start making my exit plan, because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, first and foremost, Janice is a very toxic coworker. She's clearly trying to get you in trouble, and she obviously feels threatened by you in some kind of way. And she's obviously trying to get you fired or in trouble with management, and I can guarantee you if you continue to say nothing, then this kind of behavior will keep going. Like, she's not going to stop anytime soon. She is going to keep taking secret photos of you, and she's going to do everything she can to make your life a living nightmare. Like, she basically has you wrapped around her finger. You are literally under her thumb for cleaning things up and doing things perfectly, but she is not your boss. You don't have to do all that. She's only doing that so she can have some kind of control over your employment. treatment. So if I was in your shoes, there's no way I would quit my job. I would go to my boss and tell them immediately what's going on, and then I would keep going until this behavior stops. Like, she can't just follow you around and take pictures of you instead of doing her own job. And when you say that she's untouchable because she's been there so long, trust me, that means nothing when she's doing something like this. I've learned in my own life that anybody can be fired for literally any reason. I mean, I've seen people who have worked for a company for like, what, 20 years get fired the next day because of a mess up? Like, she is not untouchable. Her behavior is absolutely unacceptable, and if I was in your shoes, there is no way I would ever put up with that kind of treatment. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for never wanting to see my mother again? Because after the way she treated me throughout my childhood, as well as how she's treating me now, I'm seriously at a crossroads and I now don't know what to do. To start things off, I need to give some background. My main family consists of me, my mother, my father, and my half-sister, who is very mentally disabled, best described as Angel Man Syndrome. My father is a pretty normal guy, and I'm very thankful for him. My sister is mentally disabled, and she can't really live her life, so I try to give her the best one possible. My mom has always been somewhat entitled, but she is very mentally unwell. My mother and father have been divorced for as long as I can remember. One night, he came home to her being drunk, and when he was trying to help her, she called the cops on him for some reason and told the cops that he was mistreating her, and unfortunately for my father, the cops that showed up were complete idiots, believing my mother immediately without even letting my father speak. Dad spent the night in prison that evening, and my father could have just accepted the punishment he was given, but here's the thing. At the time this happened, my mother was pregnant with me, and he knew that she would try to keep me after the divorce they were planning, and if he had been arrested for mistreating his wife, it wouldn't go so well when he tried to have some custody over me. So he didn't accept the punishment and fought in court for this false accusation against him. One night, nearing the end of the court case, my mother called him just to try and manipulate my father into just giving up and that the court would believe a woman over him. My father then said back, and I quote, "I will be penniless and live on the street before I allow that boy to be living with you for his entire life. I won't be giving this up." And then he hung up the phone. Now, after years of fighting, he finally won the court over and cleared his name. And after I was born and he divorced my mom, the court allowed equal custody over me. Now, with that bit of backstory out of the way, this story officially begins back when I was very little, specifically 6 or 7 years old. This is the year that my sister was born, and it is worth mentioning that my sister is not my father's child. I don't know most of the details, but I'm fairly certain she was an accidental pregnancy. Anyways, for my entire life, my mother was kind of awful at being a mother. She would make me, a child, take care of a disabled baby for the entire day, including making sure the child is fed. She would yell at me constantly and then apologize later, and I always accepted these apologies because she is really good at making me feel guilty. These yellings included when I was trying to go to sleep and then actually making me get up and do work whenever she felt angry with me. I don't even remember most of the reasons because I heard so many rants that eventually I just learned to ignore them. All in all, she was never the best mother, but she doesn't hate me. I mean, far from it. I do know that she cares about me, and that's honestly the most annoying part about it. Anyways, my mother doesn't have a job, and she was living off the money my father was sending her so that she could take care of me, as well as the money that she got from the government for my sister. Because of this, whoever is taking care of my sister is the one getting the money to take care of her, and this part will be important later on. This also eventually applied to me as I was diagnosed with ADHD, among other things, at a very young age, with my mother being happy that I got diagnosed. Eventually, my mother had to accept that she couldn't take care of my sister, even though I was the one doing it all the time, except when I was at school or at my dad's place. So she got a very nice woman and her husband to take care of my sister. My sister lived with them for a few years, and my life was going uphill. I still visited her every day that I was available, since the nice couple lived relatively close to my mother's house. Eventually, the nice couple started considering adopting my sister. Even though she was a little bit of a troublemaker and kind of a crybaby, they loved her just as much, if not more than I did. However, whoever is taking care of my sister gets money handed to them, which is enough to take care of her needs and much more. And if the nice husband and wife adopted her, they would then keep getting that money. So my mother immediately took my sister back and manipulated me into thinking that they were bad guys who were trying to take my sister away. And you know what? I hate to admit it, but if it was not for my father, I would have ended up like an entitled brat because I believed everything she said as a child. And this was no exception. I deleted their contact info, I spoke spoke badly about them and was very angry with them. And I heavily regret this after learning the truth, and I really wish that I could apologize. So, with my sister now back in my mother's house, my mom thankfully hired a group of social workers who are basically multiple babysitters. They would be there every single morning from 9 a.m. until 11 o'clock p.m., except for Friday evenings and Saturdays. But honestly, while they did take good care of my sister during the day, my sleep schedule didn't change much because since I cared for my sister and my mother, I took it upon myself to constantly wake up during the night to fix her machine whenever it stopped. And it's not a good idea for a young child to do that, but I cared and loved my sister, while also feeling pity for my mother. And also as a side fact, she never woke up to do it, so I felt like I had to. My father later described me when he came to pick me up on Saturday afternoons that if anger could be a person, then that would be me. And honestly, he's right about that. I was not having a good sleep, and I was having to take care of my disabled sister, who always was crying, while also listening to my mom constantly yelling at me, and I'm stressed out about schoolwork. I mean, none of this was making me any happier. And apparently, there were a few days where my father actually saw me shaking with rage. Around the time COVID was starting up, my mother's house caught on fire. I don't remember the exact details. It's all a blur as of now, especially considering I was the one who noticed it and got everyone out at about 3 in the morning. It was either due to wiring or a candle burning that nobody put out. Luckily, nobody got hurt and nobody died, and my dog was fine too. The only thing that really got lost was a lot of clothing and my mother's bed, so it's not a huge loss. For the duration of COVID, it was back to me and me alone taking care of my sister for a year or so. I was trapped in a house yet again, with my mother yelling and my sister crying, and me losing my mind. My mother's mental health wasn't getting any better as time went on either, causing her to have certain delusions. One of these included when the social workers were allowed to come back and help out when COVID restrictions started to lift, and one of them ended up hurting her back when carrying my sister, and my mother for some reason blamed me for this. It took a while, no thanks to COVID, but eventually my mother's house was fixed thanks to insurance, and her mental wellness was at an all-time low, not to mention the delusions that she was experiencing. She eventually started hallucinating, but never spoke about it, even though she had the delusion that people were living in the attic. She even called me in and handed me her phone, telling me to be ready to dial 911 while she went upstairs to check. Now, I didn't think much of it, other than telling her that no one was there and to calm down, but I guess I didn't tell her that enough. On just another morning, I woke up at my father's house and headed downstairs to get breakfast ready. My father was already there, with a look that I'd never seen on him before. He then informed me that my mother's house had burned down again, except this time it was on purpose. My mother had apparently set a fire in the living room, trying to smoke out the people she thought was in the attic. Thankfully, it happened on a Friday night, so there was no worker there, but my sister was there, sleeping soundly. Thankfully, instead of her and my sister passing away, my mother actually got her out of there. They were both fine, but at this point, 85% of my stuff was now gone for good. I was thankful my sister and mother were okay, but I now did not trust my mother, both for almost taking out my sister and for destroying all of my memories and keepsakes for my entire life, as well as the year-long school projects that I'd been working on, and now I had to redo them with only a week left. Now, at this point, the details get a little bit fuzzy here, mostly because I was a kid and my father tried to get details, but he just couldn't get that many. My sister was thankfully taken away from my mother and was given to a little house for disabled people. She was the only one there and she had multiple people taking care of her. I visited her every week or so and she was fine. She has no mental comprehension of much in life, and honestly, considering what she had been through, I was sort of happy in a way. My mother was apparently taken to a psych ward, and to this day, I still don't know the details of that analysis because she never sent it to my father. My father and I both think that she doesn't want us to know, which isn't exactly a good sign. Now, during this time, a court date was set up, but eventually my mother and I started talking over the phone, and for a while it went okay, but every time she would start going off the rails. She would lecture me and yell at me, and I've heard so many of her ramblings that I just don't remember most of her words. She, like I said before, is really good at using the guilt card on me, and I'm not good at avoiding it. But thankfully, my father was always there on standby, because he knew very well that one way or another, my mother would most likely go off the rails. There were multiple times that he took the phone from me after she started rambling, and he did that just to shut her up with a quick one-liner of some sort, and then would just straight up hang up on her. Now, my mother also apparently did other odd things. For example, she once stole a car thinking that the cops were on her, and to this day, this is probably the biggest delusion she's ever had. My dad has a good friend who we will call Dave, that's not his real name, and Dave unfortunately lives somewhat close to my mother's house, and while my mother occasionally has ranted at him in the past, he doesn't really care about most of it. He is a chill guy that doesn't get freaked out by much in life. Well, one day he pulled a letter out of his mailbox from my mother, and he didn't care at first, but after reading it, he was really freaked out. I won't go into details of everything said, but she just apologized for a lot of things that didn't even happen, and one of those things involved my mother telling Dave that she didn't unalive his mother. And by the way, Dave's mom is definitely still alive. Eventually, the denying of unaliving transferred over to me with the phone calls, and in one phone call, my father wasn't there, and she started to go off the rails, denying about wanting to unalive my sister, even describing how she could have done it if she wanted to. Now, knowing her very well, I simply took my phone and I set it to recording. Then I gave said recording to my father, telling him that he could use it if he wanted to. Well, my dad apparently showed the recording to his lawyer, and this lawyer is a good friend of my dad's, and she was absolutely appalled. Fast forward, and eventually a court date was set up, and she was charged for a number of things. But she evaded coming to court for so long, and the time it took for the court to even get it set up made it so that the court timer eventually ran out, and charges on her were mostly dropped. After this, she immediately tried to start getting my sister back into her custody, and not because she loved her or anything like that, but again, it's because whoever's taking care of my sister gets more than enough money to take care of her. Through the 3 years this happened, and even to this day, she never even got a job. You might be wondering how she survived that long without going homeless. Well, she ransacked my room, sold whatever she was able to salvage, and stole my wallet, which at the time was everything I had saved up, which was maybe about $1,000. And my father, being the caring man that he is, eventually gave me that money to make up for what she stole. She stole a car and eventually had to sell her house because she just wouldn't get a job ever. She eventually, throughout the months of trying, did get my sister back into her custody. But thankfully, people knew of her past with her, and she was assigned people to do random drinking and smoking tests on her, as well as check on my sister. They could come at any time and could check whether she'd done either of these things. Well, let's just say that my mom didn't even last 5 months. She went to the hospital for reasons I'm unaware of and lost custody of my sister again. I do know that she failed the test of checking on her smoking, and I'm honestly not surprised in the slightest. Now, throughout all of these years, my mother has always asked me to call and more so come to meet her in person, and with the court charges dropped, she persisted on that even harder, but I've never wanted to do that. My dad relays all of this to my mother over text messaging because there is no way I'm telling her through my messages, because then she would have my phone number. My mother has always blamed my father, claiming that he won't let her see me, which he doesn't even care about, especially since everyone but her has realized that this is my choice. Eventually, about a month ago, she asked my father if she could meet me in person. She's never getting my sister back now, by the way, so her only option is me, because she really needed money because she just refuses to get a job. This was basically a last-ditch attempt from my mother to see me, saying that if I wasn't going to, she would move away from my town. My father told me all of this, and I thought about it, and I told him to tell her in no uncertain terms that I and me alone do not wish to see her. Well, he gave that message to her, and she's been silent ever since. I do feel somewhat bad for her, but I feel like I shouldn't, but she is my mother. I don't really miss her, but I do feel bad. So honestly, am I the jerk for not wanting to see my mother again? What should I do? First and foremost, you had a really rough childhood, and I'm so sorry you went through that with your mother. She does not sound like a good mom at all, and it really seems like she hit all the marks of being an awful mother. She didn't care about you or your sister. She left you to take care of your handicapped sister the entire time you were a kid, and she's done all these crazy things at your expense. Like seriously, this is no way to treat a child or anybody. So no, I don't blame you for cutting her off and saying that you don't want anything to do with her. You deserve to have a life that isn't chaotic in the way that your mother's made it, and I don't blame you for cutting her off in the slightest. Am I overreacting for wanting to break up with my girlfriend after she went camping with 2 other men? Because right now I'm feeling very anxious, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, my girlfriend and I have been together for 2 years. She's 22 years old and I'm 27. When we first met before we got into a relationship, she told me she wanted to move out of state. Her reasons were very valid. However, I wasn't looking to move just yet since I have obligations to tend to for at least a couple more years. Now, the first year and a half were great. We had our ups and downs, and we truly went through a lot together. And through it all, we formed a fantastic bond. Now, we have been long distance for half a year, and boy, is it hard. I'm not gonna lie, it's taken taking quite a toll on me. However, I love this woman. I've seen her 3 times the past year and a half, with each time being about 3 or 4 days, and I'm currently putting my ducks in a row in order to move there in about a year. She lives there now, and of course she has to make friends, and she made some friends playing volleyball at the park. There's this one particular guy who I will call Mike, who wants to be her mentor for the job that she does. Now, he is legit. However, when I first met him, he was almost caught off guard that she had a boyfriend. Something about the way he said, "Oh, cool," when she introduced us. I don't know, their interaction together was weird. I never want to be that kind of boyfriend, so I shelved it in my mind and then I moved on. And now she's telling me that she's going camping with some volleyball people. It's going to be 2 guys and her, and one of them is Mike. Now, she could see it on my face that I was uncomfortable with it, but we got distracted with something else and didn't talk about it. She came back a few days later and told me she convinced one of her girlfriends to come along with her, so everybody's gonna be sleeping in their respective cars. But honestly, it's not about the camp. It's about this Mike guy. I can tell her that, but I just can't tell her what to do or not to do. They're currently back from camp, and I'm honestly unhappy about this. Perhaps I'm jealous and frustrated because I can't be there, but these guys even paid for everything. They got jet skis and paddle boards and the boat that they spent the whole day on, and I know her financial situation, so that's how I know they paid for everything. I don't know, I just feel like she wouldn't like it if I did that with 2 other women. So am I overreacting for wanting to end the relationship? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. I can completely understand where you're coming from, because the way this went about was really sketchy. Like, she's going on this camping trip with these guys, and had full intentions of only going on that trip with those 2, while bringing along a girl as an afterthought just to make you happy. Like, it's hard enough that you guys are long distance as it is, but to go off on a trip like that all of a sudden is just really suspicious in my opinion, and I don't blame you for being upset. So hopefully you 2 are able to talk about this in some kind of way, because I completely agree with you. If you did that with 2 other women, I'm sure she would be very upset, and hopefully she can see exactly where you're coming from. My entitled sister refuses to pay me back any money that she owes me, claiming that because my elderly dad pays me to take care of him full time, my money isn't actually mine, and that I should be okay with her taking it. And I'm honestly so frustrated, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to start off by saying that I'm almost in tears as I'm writing this because I am so infuriated. My 34-year-old sister works full time, but has always been irresponsible about money. She has a lot of credit card debt, and there's been several times throughout the year that she has either asked me to borrow money or gone into debt. My mom passed away 3 years ago, and Mother's Day is a very difficult holiday. My dad is elderly, and the last year that I was living with him, I was helping him full time because he has health issues, and otherwise I would have just gotten a caregiver. Prior to that, I had given up my apartment and my job to move in with him as a temporary thing just to help out. My dad paid me each month to help him, but nowhere near the amount of money that it would be to hire a professional caregiver. However, he wanted me to be able to get my independence back, as well as being able to get a job again outside of him, so he helped me financially with getting an apartment last month, simply because I've been helping him, which I honestly appreciate so much. I am still going over there and helping him several times a week with all of his meal prep, as well as his medical appointments, because right now I'm job searching, and when I do get a job, obviously things will shift, and he will need to get someone to come in and help. Because Mother's Day is a difficult day after the loss of my mom, my sister had suggested that just the 2 of us should go out today to brunch and a movie. She had found a restaurant and pre-booked the movie tickets, which I paid her for. When we were at lunch, I asked the waiter to put it on separate checks, and he ended up putting some of her items on mine because I think he was just confused on how to do it, and I said that's fine, and I just told her to send me money through a Cash App. Well, when I said that, she just kind of brushed it off and just told me that she can't do that right now. I said, okay, I'm a little confused. If he had put the items on your check, you would be paying for it. And she said, I asked Dad if I can use his card and pay him back, so I can't pay you right now. When she said that, I was getting increasingly annoyed about this because she knows I am living on a certain budget per month, and it's a pretty low budget that my dad pays me in terms of helping him every day full time. She then proceeded to tell me that it's not my money anyways. She then said that Dad is paying for my entire life, so any money that I have is not actually mine. And I was so sickened by this comment because I help him full time and I get payment in return. I don't ask her for any help, and she only helps him once in a while. She also has taken money in previous months out of my dad's account and has said that it was by accident, and told him that she would pay him back and still hasn't several times over. Because she was going after me in terms of saying that it's not my money anyways, place, I said, well, at least I didn't steal from him. I clarified that there was a charge last month for $300 that clearly he knows was taken from him. She then started to get rude and said to me that it was by accident and she didn't steal it. We then left the restaurant and she didn't say a word to me. She just headed towards the car instead of the movie theater. I told her if we are not going to the movie, I expect my money back since I already paid for it. But she just ignored me and didn't say a word. We get back and she drops me at my car. I told her that I expect to be paid back and I'm not going to forget about it. But she just ignored me and didn't say anything. And right now I am beyond upset. It's already been a really difficult day with the loss of my mom, but the fact that I basically fronted money for her and I feel as though she has no intention to ever pay me back and she dismissed that it's even my money in the first place is all so infuriating. My dad also enabled her a lot and I have tried to warn him that this continues to happen and it's all super enabling, but he's worried about getting on the wrong page with her, so he gives her money when she needs it and just doesn't ask any questions. However, with me, if she had simply asked me in advance and said that she doesn't have money to go out today and that if I could just pay for it and she would pay me back, I would have said yes. It's more just the assumption that's really getting to me, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, your sister is super toxic. Like seriously, she knows your money is tight right now, and she knows that you're going through a hard time. You literally upended your entire life so that you could take care of your dad. So for her to be like, oh yeah, that money isn't actually yours, dad pays for everything you have. It's like, yeah, no kidding, dad's paying me. I work full time to take care of him. Meanwhile, she's literally done nothing to help out. It's all super unfair, and I'm so sorry you're dealing with this. And I honestly don't blame you for getting upset because the way she's acting is super inappropriate. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My coworker is incredibly creepy, making uncomfortable comments towards me and my other coworkers all the time, and highly suggesting that he basically wants to hook up with me. And now I feel like I'm at a crossroads as I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I want to give as much context as possible. I'm also at a job where I have to sit here awake all night and find ways to occupy my time. So I suppose this will be helpful in more ways than one. I'm a 29-year-old female, and I work midnight shifts part-time. It is required that 2 people be in the building all night long, and I have a set position, so I work 4 nights in a row, and then I have 10 off. It is honestly a blessing, and the best schedule someone with insomnia could ever ask for. The job is easy, relaxing, and the majority of the coworkers I've met have been great. There is literally only one problem, and it's this guy who's 40 years old that I have to work with every single night. He also has a set schedule, but he is full-time. He is here 8 days in a row, and 4 of those days collide with my schedule. I am new to this building, but I've worked for this company for 6 years. He has been with this building for a few years, and honestly, he makes me very uncomfortable. I try to be open and not judgmental. I mean, I love when people are weird and unique, and I generally love conversing with people about just whatever might be going on. And this isn't a case where I'm saying, oh, he makes me uncomfortable and I can't figure out why. Trust me, I know exactly why he makes me uncomfortable. There are so many reasons, but I'm gonna start off with the biggest reason first. The very first night that we met, he expressed to me that he was single and lonely and looking for a girlfriend. Now, this struck me as odd, but I just used it as an opportunity to express that I was in a long-term relationship and didn't believe dating coworkers was a good idea anyways. This then brought him into a discussion about how he had just gotten out of a relationship with one of our coworkers. It was a girl that I had started with, and it's someone I admire because she is kind and she takes her job seriously. And usually, these are my only requirements for liking a coworker. He talked for a long time about how she was insane and led him on, and her only reason when she left him was because he was too good of a boyfriend. And this really made me weary already because that's honestly a really weird thing to say. He regularly talks about how he met a pretty girl, but not like actually met them. Instead, he mentions how a cashier at the gas station flirted with him and then would say something like, I'm thinking about moving to a town over because I would be closer to her and maybe I could turn this flirtation into something more. For reference, he lives 20 minutes away from this town as it is, and it honestly just gives very bad vibes. There also happens to be a few young boys who work here, and we're talking like 18 years old, maybe in their senior year of high school, and there's about an hour overlap between their shift and ours. One night, one of them was talking about possibly taking an extra training course the job offers because it's only a week long, and when you're finished, you get a 75-cent raise. It does raise responsibility just a little bit, but it's nothing crazy. Essentially, if there ever isn't a supervisor jobs are available, it would fall to the person with these qualifications. But it's important to note that you aren't a supervisor. I remember thinking to myself, what a good kid. It seems like he has a good head on his shoulders. Well, this coworker of mine says to him, yeah, and also think about the cute girls that you could meet while you're there. And I thought to myself, like, dude, what are you doing? You're like 40 years old. Stop talking to kids like that. I just redirected with, well, I think that's a solid plan, and you sound like you have your priorities straight. Now that we've been working together for a few months, he seems to be getting more comfortable, but I have not. I bring my laptop with me every night, and sometimes I type up work, and sometimes I watch TV, or sometimes I'm on Discord watching whatever my boyfriend is streaming. Lately, he's been coming up behind me, standing way too close while leaning over top of me, and asking me questions like, what are you watching? What's that about? He's saying whatever he can to extend the conversation, while I sit there with some random dude towering over top of me that I hardly know. It is super uncomfortable. Now, I am not shy. I have no issue expressing that I'm not okay with him being in my bubble, but he does not seem to care as he continues to do this. Mind you, we work in the middle of nowhere, and it's just the two of us. He is about 6 foot and maybe 200 pounds, and I'm a towering 5 foot nothing and maybe 150 pounds. So the difference is massive. Last night, he said something that really put me off. During the overlap between shifts, one of the high schoolers and I were discussing the Avril Lavigne conspiracy theory. I mentioned how she is a very beautiful girl, and my 40-year-old coworker took this as an opportunity to say to me, oh, if I could create my dream girl in a lab, I think she would look like Millie Bobby Brown, so young and so hot. And when he said that, I almost puked. Don't get me wrong, she is gorgeous. It is not wrong to acknowledge that she is an attractive person whatsoever. But when you're 40 and you're speaking about a 20-year-old girl like that, like seriously, that's so weird. I'm 29, and when I look at 20-year-olds, I couldn't imagine seeing them like that. Now, like I said earlier, I have no problem speaking up. And trust me, that's exactly what I did. I told him he was way too old to be speaking about her like that, and he said, what? She's like 25? What's the problem? So I explained that she's 20, but even if she was 25, it would still be wrong. He just looked at me and said, it's still legal. And I got very upset and snapped back by saying, well, legal doesn't make it right. And this ended there. So tonight, I'm here again. My last night of the 4, and I've realized that he not only makes me super uncomfortable, but I'm dreading coming to work every single night. I'm taking a lot of smoke breaks despite not being a smoker, and my boyfriend even suggested I wear my aunt's ring on my left hand and pretend to be engaged, but that doesn't seem to be getting him to back off. For the record, my boyfriend and I have been together for many years, and we have 2 kids. We both want to get married and have discussed it, but unfortunately, it just isn't in the cards financially. I'm now at a point where I'm considering going to my boss. I know for a fact she would speak with him and tell him to back off. She is a good woman, and she's been my boss for the entirety of my time here. The reason I'm second guessing it is because I'm worried about retaliation. Because as I've mentioned, it's just the 2 of us in the middle of nowhere for 10 hours. Also, I'm worried about my perfect schedule getting moved around. So my question is, am I overreacting? Should I let him keep being weird? Maybe I'm just taking him the wrong way, I don't really know. Or should I go to my boss and let whatever happens happen? What should I do? I don't think you're overreacting, and honestly, I think your coworker is really creepy. Like he's making these really inappropriate comments and kind of like suggesting that he wants to hook up with you in some kind of way. Like it's not something he's actively saying, but like seriously, it's really implied. And that is seriously uncalled for. So yes, if I was in your shoes, I would be going directly to my boss. I would be documenting everything that he said, as well as all the creepy behavior that he's exhibiting, and if anything, maybe request to have somebody else with you on those nights. And I totally get it, you don't want to mess up your perfect schedule, but you might need to accept the fact that this is going to happen if you do plan on getting away from this guy, because what you're describing does not sound okay, and in my opinion, I think you need to do something sooner than later. My job is making me miserable, and is constantly failing to deliver on all the things that I was promised, and now that I found out my coworkers are talking garbage about me behind my back, I am now at a crossroads, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so for a bit of background, I'm 23 years old, and I've been working in restaurants since I was 18 years old. I've worked for restaurants in 2 different countries, and I'm an immigrant from Scotland who currently resides in America. I recently got a job as a host this April, and during the hiring process, I was promised that there would be zero drama, which I knew was a lie, but one could hope, right? What helped me get the job was that I used to work for another sister company, which ironically, I had some of the same issues with as well. I was also told that I would be placed on kitchen shifts, so my first day when I was supposed to work, I couldn't because my name and information was yet to be put in the system, and it was like this for 3 days. days, which I was told that was just a system problem, which I completely understood. On my official first day, I was thrown to the wolves and not really trained. I naturally learned almost everything by myself, and I am actively still learning things. I don't typically trust technology with schedules and all this other stuff, so I would write out my schedule on paper just in case. I still don't have a hold of all the table numbers, and apparently I'm also supposed to take to-go orders, which is something I wasn't told to do. So now I have to learn the entire menu. It also doesn't help that we are so understaffed in the mornings, which also reminds me that I was promised that I wouldn't be the only morning host on, which is, ironically enough, one of the problems I had with the sister company. I mean, things can get so overwhelming. It also didn't help that multiple people supposedly trained me and told me different things because we didn't have an official trainer. When I touched base with the general manager about the kitchen shifts, he told me he would put me on kitchen as soon as he hires more people to be a host. But now he's hired multiple hosts and I still haven't been placed on any kitchen shifts. It has got to a point where I've heard new servers and bartenders talking garbage about me, which isn't totally abnormal. I knew it was going to happen one day or another, but they have so many complaints about me. They don't like the way I do rotation. They don't like how I seat people. The list goes on and on. I even heard one of the people talking about how I walk, but it's gotten to the point of blatant xenophobia, which I definitely reported, but then I was told that it wasn't happening by managers when multiple other hosts and even a server told me, and I witnessed it for myself. Right from the start, I told my managers that I would have a trip to make in late May, which would last an entire week, and all of them were okay with it. They simply told me to put in the request on the application we use, and this needed to be done 7 days before the trip. I am a big communication sort of guy, but fast forward to today and my request got denied. There is more to add, but honestly, that's just the quick rundown. I honestly feel like going to HR, but I have never gone to HR for anything before, so I'm honestly so frustrated and I seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, this restaurant sounds like an absolute mess to deal with. First of all, they're not even giving you the stuff that you were promised, and then even though you're doing your best after not being trained, people are talking garbage about you. Like seriously, that is so uncalled for and so toxic. There is literally no reason for them to do that, and it's only driving a wedge between you and your coworkers. So personally, I would definitely be going to my boss or human resources of some kind because this is absolutely unacceptable. I would take note of everything that's going on, and I would absolutely report these people for making a hostile work environment because in my opinion, you do not deserve this kind of treatment in the slightest. Am I the jerk for not showing up to a Mother's Day lunch with my extended paternal family simply because they've been super toxic to me in the past? Because right now they are very angry that I didn't show up, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm an 18-year-old male, and this is the first year where I don't live at home anymore, and it was the first time it was up to me what I did for Mother's Day. I was invited to celebrate with my extended paternal family, including my dad's wife, but I chose to say no to their invite, and I spent some time with my 2 maternal aunts instead. This decision was controversial because my dad's wife married my dad when I was only 8 years old, and I grew up surrounded by my paternal family, and I was always there every year before this except for when my mom was alive. For reference, my mom passed away when I was 6 years old, and for context, we used to spend Mother's Day together with her sisters and my cousin. And here's another big fact. I hate my dad's wife. I hate most of my dad's family, and my dad isn't someone I respect very much. My dad's family hated my mom. They felt like she wasn't good enough for my dad, and they didn't like her parenting choices, such as not getting me into a sport from a very young age, because sports are huge on my dad's side, or even getting me in the kitchen when I was so little that I just don't even remember it starting. I just remember that being something mom and I did, and this is because they don't believe boys or men should be in the kitchen. They also don't like how dad would defend mom and would put them in their place if they brought up concerns with her, and they also thought that mom was using dad because he used to bring her a bunch of flowers once a week, and he would make things for her, such as the keychain that she used until she passed away, and even made her a bracelet. They thought dad was being weak with her and that she was turning him into someone who only cared about her. Now, I know all of this because my dad's family and my dad's wife talk garbage about my mom a lot, and they do this around me, and this has definitely led to fights. I used to be told that my dad's wife was a much better wife and mom, and I would just tell them that she's not my mom. She would tell me that I was a silly little child who just simply didn't understand adult issues, but I told her that she was a silly adult who wouldn't accept that she would never be important to me, and I would trade her for my mom every single time, and I would never love or accept her, and she wasn't half as good as my mom. I was told that she gave me something, which is something my sterile mother couldn't do. And you know what? My dad just let it happen, because when my mom passed away, he leaned on his family, and because of that, he ended up being soaked back in. And while he doesn't talk crap about mom, and he tells me it really bothers him, he simply won't do anything about it. So I have no respect for him. He is such a coward. He even leaves flowers on my mom's grave every single week behind their backs. I went very low contact at 18 years old and only got the invite because I didn't block them. I sent one reply that I would not be there, and I said nothing more even after their messages. But yesterday, when they realized I wasn't coming, I got so many text messages about how awful I was, and I just straight up blocked them. But then my dad's wife found me on social media and told me that I should be there to celebrate her, as well as saying how dare I not spend the day with my family. So honestly, am I the jerk for not showing up on Mother's Day? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. No, I don't blame you for a second for staying out of that, because based on what you've described, your extended family sounds awful. Like seriously, they're gonna sit there and talk about your dead mom in a way that makes her seem like a villain? Like that's so unfair, and especially in front of you. Like if they seriously hold that kind of opinion, then maybe, I don't know, keep that to yourself until the kid's out of the room. For them to express that so openly and in front of you at that, in my opinion, shows exactly how toxic they truly are. So no, you are not the jerk for not showing up, because if I was in your shoes, I think I would have done the exact same thing. Am I the jerk for telling my sister-in-law that she is a complete idiot for expecting any kind of gifts for her marriage when she got eloped without telling a single person about it? Because right now she is very angry, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. When my husband and I got married, we had a small wedding with maybe about 150 people there. And trust me, that is very small for our families. We paid for everything ourselves. Altogether, we spent about $25,000, and it was in our budget, and we had saved up for it. And that literally included everything, from the dress that I wore to the wedding party's dresses and the tux rentals, while also adding in catering. If you name it, we paid for it, and it came in under budget. The people that came to the wedding were family and close friends, which honestly is the way it should be. And thankfully, they were generous with their gifts, both from the registry and with cash in envelopes. When everything was said and done, our house was filled with great stuff that we needed, and our savings were several thousands of dollars over where we started before we paid for the wedding. Now, with that bit of context out of the way, my husband's sister just eloped in February, and nobody found out about it until early April when she sent out links to her wedding registry. Now, not too many people have bought anything off of it yet, and she is now getting super upset about that. All she talks about whenever we speak is how cheap everybody is being. Every conversation leads back to the same topic, and after more than a month of this, I've simply had enough. I asked her if she understood why we got gifts when I married her brother. I mean, we had a physical wedding that took place at a church, and then a reception at a rented ballroom. Well, when I said that, she said I was treating her like an idiot, and that she understood the difference between our weddings. I asked her, well, why she would expect the same kind of treatment for two very different events. I then said that only an idiot would think the outcome would be the same in both situations. Well, now she is very mad at me, and my husband said he was also frustrated with her stupidity, but that I should apologize for calling her an idiot. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation for what I said? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. No, it really seems like she was harping about this for way too long, and in my opinion, that's just super obnoxious. And I think you spelled it out perfectly in my opinion. Like, you two seriously had way different events. You got married at a physical location, and you had it in such a way where people could plan on attending. And in her case, she's sitting there like, oh yeah, well, we got eloped, why is nobody giving us any kind of gift? And it's like, oh, I don't know, maybe because you didn't tell anybody that you got married? Like, no one knew about it, and they're now just getting a link being like, hey, here's my wedding registry. And it's like, what are you talking about? Why would anyone give you anything? The original poster actually planned on something and wanted people to be there, whereas this sister-in-law basically did this spur of the moment, and now she's wondering, wait a second, why don't I have anything that you have? So in my opinion, I don't think you did anything wrong. I think you're completely justified for saying that she is out of line, because the way she's acting honestly would have gotten very annoying very quickly. My crazy entitled sister organized with her friends to steal my bike and dump it in a lake as some form of weird twisted revenge. But after dealing with her attitude my entire life, I refused to take this sitting down, demanding that she give me my bike back or else I was going to call the cops. And I've honestly never been more frustrated with anybody in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to start off by saying that this situation is downright crazy. I seriously never thought my sister would do something like this. To get straight to the point, my parents and sister were angry at me for regularly eating in a hospital cafeteria, all because it was close to my work. I enjoy the peace and quiet there on the days I do show up to eat, but this situation escalated so radically that I can't believe that something this dumb actually happened. My sister did the pettiest thing she's ever done to me, and it was all for completely undeserved reasons too. Now, when my sister found out I was eating at the hospital cafeteria, she went off on me. She was fussing at me about how that food is just for people who are at the hospital because they need to be there. We ended up in a big argument about it, in which I told her it wasn't like I was taking food from the mouths of patients. Then she went to our parents to get them on her side just like always, and they immediately sided with her just like I thought they would. They backed her up on how the hospital cafeteria was not a place to go eating casually, and we had a big argument. They spent days hounding me and telling me that I was wrong and demanding that I stopped. So I went online to find some kind of advice to help me out, and here I learned that not only was I not doing anything wrong, but it's a very common thing for people to go eat at hospital cafeterias just because they like to do it. Now, I had hoped that the situation would have just faded away, but a few days later, my sister called me asking if I stopped eating at the hospital. But when I said no, this all just started all over again. My parents then called me fuming, acting like I was supposed to stop going because they said so. I reminded them that I don't live under their roof anymore, and this is exactly the reason why I moved out. They take my sister's side on almost everything, and the entire time they're huffing and puffing about it. This time the fight didn't stay at home though. Other relatives found out because my sister tried to broaden her support. She was so dead set on enforcing her will upon me that she went looking for help from other relatives. But our parents were the only ones on her side, and my uncle personally admonished my parents and her over the phone for it once I told him what actually happened. He then told them that they were only siding with my sister because she's their favorite, and that they're terrible parents for ever playing favorites to begin with. Then my cousin went to eat with me at the hospital cafeteria and said that he would like to go there once a week as well, as he also works nearby and takes a bicycle everywhere. And we've run into each other at lunch there once before already. He was actually rather pleased to find out the food was made healthier than most other places. And trust me, he is a very picky eater, so this place is kind of his new lunch hangout. And my sister got even angrier after finding out that there were other people in the family eating at the hospital now as well. Once outed, my parents backed down due to embarrassment. They apologized to me and gave me some malarkey that they honestly thought eating at a hospital was weird and that they just felt like they needed to defend my sister. I told them that they had been placating my sister for so long that it's all they do whenever she starts something with anyone. She's been treating me like a condescending control freak and a bully since we were teenagers, even though I'm older and they just kept enabling that. But I won't be putting up with it anymore. My parents ended up conceding and then apologized. They then made my sister apologize too, and I could tell that she hated every second of it because she tried to speak through her teeth at first. Later on, my parents invited me to dinner as another form of apology, but it felt more like a show to look good to the rest of the family because they told everybody about it before it even happened. And honestly, the dinner was great, I can't deny it. My parents had cooked a turkey, and arguably it's one of my favorite things to eat. Now, here's where things really get messy. Later, after the family dinner, I noticed that my bike was missing. I had parked it in the backyard out of sight, but it was just completely gone. Now, I started to freak out because this is my only mode of transportation, and my parents did panic with me, but my sister seemed just the opposite. She actually looked happy and was giggling. Well, when I saw that, I immediately suspected her, but she just played innocent. She even looked at me and said, "Oh, I can't believe you would think I would ever do something like that." I already know she's extremely petty, but this is a whole new level even for her. So I said I was going to go over to the neighbor's house because I know that they have cameras, so they definitely would have seen what happened, and then I'm gonna call the cops. Well, when I said that, my sister suddenly looked extremely panicked, and I got mad and said I knew it was her. And right then and there, I demanded my bike back. But right at that moment, she started to cry, saying that she didn't do anything, and our parents were immediately taking her side while scolding me for daring to accuse her like that. So I had had enough, and I said I was going to the neighbors to check their cameras, and then I'm definitely calling the police. Once everybody knew I was serious, my sister finally fessed up and called me to come back. The looks on our parents' faces after they just defended her were priceless. My sister said that she was just so angry at me for having made her apologize for something she still believed she was right about. So she planned to have a couple of her friends to come and grab my bike during dinner. She said her friends were in a minivan with it just down the street. She then started saying that I couldn't call the police on her anyways because I'm her big brother, with our parents backing that up as well. But you know what I did? I pulled out my phone and I started marching outside again. They ran after me and my sister begged and cried for me to stop, but I just called her a brat, and then I told my parents I couldn't believe they were still defending her when she was acting this way. Our parents finally hit their enabling limit with her and told her to make her friends bring back the bike immediately. She got on the phone while sniffling and called her friends up, but then she suddenly ran into her room to talk to them. I couldn't hear a thing that she said through the door because it was all whispers, and our parents looked very worried as well. My sister would never willingly admit that she had my bike stolen. She just kept sobbing that it was only a prank over and over again, and she kept using the same excuse that it's just a cheap bike anyways. I mean, I did buy it used some months ago for $50, but it's in great shape, and it's my main mode of transportation. My sister kept looking at our parents to back her up, and that time they just simply couldn't do it. So she just slumped down in a chair, hugging her knees and waiting with the rest of us. My sister looked increasingly freaked out the longer her friends took to bring my bike back, and was repeatedly texting them over and over again. Even though my sister said her friends were just down the street, it took them roughly an hour to bring my bike back. They finally pulled up in the minivan with my bike shoved in the back, and it was completely soaked and all muddy, almost as if they'd pulled it out of a wet, muddy ditch. The bike is a 700C, so it's too tall for either of them to ride. So they just drove right up and stole the bike by dragging it into the van as fast as they could before taking off. And I say they stole it because I was almost certain in the moment my sister had told them to dispose of my bike. I mean, had I not pointed out the neighbors having cameras, I may have never gotten it back. When her friends did finally arrive, their legs were all muddy and wet nearly up to their knees. They both begged me not to report them to the police for taking the bike, but I asked while recording them to tell me the truth and pointed out that the neighbors have cameras. I wanted to know right then and there, did my sister want them to get rid of my bike? Well, they started to break down and they said yes. My sister wanted them to take the bike and dump it in a pond a few miles away, and they had to go back and get it when they realized that they were caught. My bike had been near completely submerged in muddy water, but thankfully I didn't have many added accessories on it besides a detachable headlight and my water bottle. But even then, the water bottle was missing. Now, I wasn't surprised by what my sister's friends told me, and I had them tell our parents too. Well, when they heard that, they laid into my sister till she was bawling on the floor, kicking and pounding like a toddler. And I had never seen my sister act that way since she actually was a toddler, and I found it mortifying that she was still like this on the inside. Then she shut herself in her room. Her friends were banned from ever coming to my parents' house again, and then my sister was forced to come out of her room by our mother and make another big apology to me. Our father then forced her to wash and oil my bike from stem to stem, all under his supervision, while I took apart the headlight and cleaned it out to dry it. By the time my sister was done, it was dark outside. She glared at me like I was the devil when she came back in the house, but our parents shut her attitude right down and said they've never been more embarrassed by her in their lives. She went back to crying in her room, and I had a very frank discussion with my parents about my sister's childlike behavior and how it all stemmed from their spoiling and enabling. I said that I couldn't believe that I had to be the voice of reason, but the fact that she was on the floor crying like a toddler, kicking and pounding, showed that she's still mentally a child because of them. And they kept making me the scapegoat when she's the one that screwed up, so she barely knows any sense of accountability. For once, they didn't argue with me about it, and then my father silently drove me and my bike back to my apartment with his SUV. He also gave me some money to replace my bike's missing water bottle before we parted ways. Now, my sister and her clique of friends used to bother me a fair bit whenever we ran into each other, and they liked to make fun of me as a group whenever possible. And I usually just ignored them because they bored me, and that really seemed to tick them off. But after the bike incident, I got sent numerous messages from numbers I didn't even know that were cussing me out for making my sister cry over a silly prank. Knowing her, my sister probably fed everyone she knew a very different story on what actually happened. So I texted lengthy replies of the real story and even stated that I have recordings of her friends admitting the truth. Some people at my sister's college found out what actually went down, and this might have been from my text messages or her friends spilling the beans, but it embarrassed my sister so much that she came home having a crying temper tantrum about how people were were calling her and her friends awful names, as well as accusing them of being bike thieves. Now, I may not have gone to college, but I know students who need them are very protective of their bikes. I mean, after all, a lot of them live on shoestring budgets. My sister said someone even joked that they shouldn't leave a bike around her because it might just disappear if she had to apologize to anyone. My sister ended up so upset that she refused to leave her room for 3 days just so she could continue the pity party. My parents called me up to try and turn everything on me again, but I reminded them about the discussion we had literally days before and that they needed to stop babying her and to let her deal with the repercussions of her actions. If she fails her classes again, it's because she's not trying like she should be. Then I went off on how they're just looking for someone to blame just to make her feel better. But you know what? She made the problem, not me. And I was not going to be the one they make the scapegoat any longer. My sister is an adult, and she really needs to act like it. Now, at this point, they sound defeated, and then apologize before ending the call. And it looks like they were genuinely hoping I'd just sit back and take the blame, just so my sister would feel better, but I'm just never going to do that again. Now, my parents are trying to pretend this all never happened, and my sister as well as her clique are avoiding me at all cost, which I suppose is fine, because seriously, I don't want any more drama. Because trust me, the next time something like this happens to me again, I will not be taking it from any of them ever again. Yeah, your sister is super crazy for doing that. Like seriously, who plans to have someone else's property stolen all because the other person has to apologize? Like that is such a crazy response to saying I'm sorry. Like I can understand not liking your siblings and not liking the decisions they make, but to orchestrate your brother's bike getting stolen simply because you lost an argument and you're pissed off, like that is such a huge escalation. There's just no good excuse for that. Like the barrier of entry for not doing something insane in this situation was so low that it's bonkers to me that the sister still failed to be a decent human being. Like seriously, just don't steal other people's stuff. Like that's super simple. And also, what kind of friends would be willing to do something like that for this sister? Like they seriously went along with this and said, yeah, we'll help steal from your brother, we'll show him. Like these people are adults, they do know that, right? Like if the original poster wanted to press charges and be like, hey, I've got all the evidence I need to like put you in jail for stealing from me, he easily could have done that. Not to mention the camera footage from the neighbor literally across the street, because I know for a fact if my friend came up to me and said, hey, let's steal from my brother, and oh, by the way, we're gonna dump his bike in a lake, I would be like, wait a second, what are we doing? This is not okay. So all of them are just as guilty as one another. They willingly went along with this when seriously, any rational human being would have been like, oh yeah, I'm gonna back out of this and not talk to this lady ever again. So honestly, good for you for proving that your sister orchestrated all of this, because based on the way your parents were acting, I'm pretty sure they would defend her no matter what. And hopefully nothing like this ever happens again. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled friend is furious with me after I told her I was getting a dog that she doesn't like, and I'm honestly so confused by her reaction, and I'm worried that our friendship might be over. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened very recently, and I'm honestly unsure of how to handle it. I can't believe this is an issue to begin with, so this may be a bit of a rant. I'm a 28-year-old male, and I have a friend who is in her 50s, and we are close friends. The kind where you don't talk often, but when you do, it's always really good. We mainly talk about our pets, and she's been there for me a lot, and I really do value her and our friendship. But there is only one issue. It is never a good idea to disagree with her. She has very strong opinions and will shove them down everybody's throat. She's also notorious in all pet stores and all for the wrong reasons. I'm not too bothered by it. I just know when to shut my mouth and agree. Arguing is not worth it, and I find our friendship more important than being right about something. It has never really been a problem until now. When I brought up wanting a Doberman, she was rather judgmental, saying that I'm too insecure to raise a dog and that a dog wouldn't solve my mental problems. I found her assumptions harmful and very untrue, even if she probably meant well. Obviously, a dog won't make my mental illness go away, but I think taking care of a dog and having a companion has been helpful for a lot of people, especially someone with mental illness. It just so happens that a Doberman is exactly what I want, as they fit my lifestyle. I'm also not as spineless or insecure as she made me out to be. But the thing is, I just don't like to argue with her because I know that she would end our entire friendship over me not agreeing on something. I don't waste my energy on an argument that won't lead anywhere. So I just didn't mention it again, and I wasn't wasn't super upset. I just decided not to talk to her about it. A few weeks later, I sent a video of a puppy that I have my eyes on. I hoped that maybe she would be happy for me, and somehow I thought that she would be, but instead, she sent me a voice message demanding I tell her which exact reasons I have to get a Doberman. It made me feel like I had to justify my decision to her, almost as if I needed her permission or something like that. Now, me having this dog won't affect her in the slightest, so I find this weird and honestly kind of entitled. Also, I knew she would disagree with all of my reasonings, so I politely said that I know she doesn't think that I'm the right person for this, but that I disagree, and I've done a lot of research, which I definitely have. I have considered this for literally years, although I didn't talk to her about it until I previously mentioned the dog. I just didn't see a reason to, and I still don't. Like I said, it doesn't affect her, and it's not like we talk a lot or even talk about everything. I told her she has nothing to worry about and that the decision wasn't impulsive. Well, she immediately got upset. She said I was very defensive, even though I acted calm and I was very polite. However, I simply disagree and I just didn't want to justify my decision. This is probably the first time I said no to her, and she started going off about how dangerous this dog is, that it's not the right breed for me, and that she knows a lot more about this than I do, and that I should be able to explain why I want one, especially to her. Now, she does know a lot about animals, but judging by what she said about the breed, she seriously does not know as much as she claims. They were very outdated views, and some of the facts were just so wrong. She said that I only want this dog to have as a shield, and that I'm going to end up with a weapon that I can't control. But I said multiple times that I understand and respect her opinion, and that I was sorry for upsetting her, but that I simply just don't agree, and I didn't like her initial question. According to her, I turned her into something that she's not, and I was the one being extremely defensive. But again, I was very calm, and I was never accusatory, while she was the one who sent me long voice messages in which she was yelling and crying. It seems like everything I said just made her more angry. She ended by saying I've insulted her and that I should know what that feels like. I said I was sorry about that, and that I hope we can talk about this when we're both calm. Now, at this point, I am extremely confused about what I did wrong, and I am honestly kind of angry because I feel like she's simply mad at me for not agreeing with her. She knows as well as I do that I will put all my time and energy into this dog, that I am someone who will make well-informed decisions and won't hesitate to ask a professional dog trainer for guidance. And even if we are close, we are not so close that I need to involve her in all decisions like this. But it seems like she thinks I can't do this without her approval. Now, I haven't heard from her since our argument, and I suspect that she expects me to apologize. And I'm now unsure of what to do, except wait until she calms down, and then she'll talk to me again like nothing happened. I might have to rethink this friendship, because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, the lady you're talking about in this story is not your friend. No friend in their right mind would stop being your friend all because you disagree with them. Like, she sounds crazy, and I mean that quite literally. She has these strong opinions, and she's almost like policing everything that you do. And that is not a good friend. That's not even close to being a friend. That's just some controlling jerk who wants to like rule your life. And you definitely do not deserve that. And it's so bizarre for her to be like, wow, you don't deserve that dog. Give me the exact reasons why you want a Doberman. It's like, lady, what are you talking about? This isn't your mother. You don't have to like report to her about anything. And you know what? I know plenty of people whose mental health have improved because they own a dog. It gives you a routine, there's someone that is relying on you, and the dog literally forces you out of bed to feed and walk them. In my opinion, there are so many benefits of having a dog. So for her to be like, wow, that's not the right dog for you, that's a really insane thing to say, and honestly so unacceptable. And the icing on the cake, in my opinion, is the fact that she kept screaming, I'm not being defensive, you're being defensive. She was trying to act like you're the one being super defensive and accusatory and turning her into something that she's not. Meanwhile, she's sending you all these messages literally yelling and crying because you're getting a Doberman. Like, that seriously sounds like she's projecting her own emotions on you, and that seriously is like insane in my opinion. So no, you do not need this lady's approval to get a dog, and hopefully you can see that she is not a good friend sooner than later, because her behavior is seriously unacceptable, and you do not deserve to be treated like that in the slightest. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Jerk, make sure to subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.